What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Troll Bro Dude, and today I am once again excited to talk about our partners from Underdog Fantasy, the newest and best place to play fantasy sports and win big prizes. And we are only 3 weeks away from the NBA trade deadline. It is right in the thick of Slop season, and we are doing our first contest with Underdog, the Slop season contest on Underdog, where you can win up to $500 if you guess where NBA players are going to be traded this deadline. So visit the link in the description, sign up for Underdog using our promo code SLOP, that's SLOP, to support the podcast. Get a $100 deposit match when you do, and then you can also win up to $500 in the Slop season contest. So link for the contest is in the description. Link to sign up for Underdog is in the description as well. And thank
down
you,
there.
Sam.
Yeah, down there.
Thank you, Sam. For
I assume everyone's watching on YouTube. All the hogs who are watching this live, we've already got their money. We don't care anymore.
It's true. It's a
very
good point.
Them down there. Yeah,
exactly. So check out all that stuff. And then in addition to that, we will be doing for the NFL playoffs. We'll be doing every single week a different draft. We did one last week. I didn't win any money, but 3 people that listen to the podcast won my money. So if you want to try to win my money, you can do that as well. We'll have another one, and I'll roll out the link on Twitter on Friday for next weekend's games. Also, NBA stuff, you could do Pick'em, Fantasy. They have a ton of cool stuff on Underdog. So sign up if you have not already. And then most importantly, we have another thing that Underdog will be supporting in the coming weeks. I am very excited for Slop Fest 2 Electric Boogaloo dropping on the YouTube channel. We're going to be streaming. Sam, you took off work, right?
I took off work. People are not going to be getting social work care because of the slop work. This is how we prioritize things. So if there is no slop on this day, just know that that people were denied social work services because of this.
It's a worthy cause.
Parody. There is ample coverage, but it would be a funny. No one is actually being endangered. Parody.
Yeah. Well, I actually did have a nightmare recently. Not a bit. I tweeted it and people thought I was joking. I had a nightmare that it was Slop Fest, and we showed up on the day of the trade deadline, February 9th, by the way. We're going to be streaming all day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there was just no trades. There was nothing. We were just slopless. We were sitting there, no shams, no woj, nothing. Just sitting there hoping for something to happen, and nothing happened. So hopefully that nightmare doesn't happen on the day of the trade
deadline. I will
deadline.
prepare contingencies just in case. There will be some fun bits. You guys might be familiar with our Bud Dwyer, right? Well, anyway, I have he has sort of inspired me for a sort of entertainment if there is no slop. Yes.
Yes.
So
Pennsylvania legend.
Tune in. Yeah. So tune in to catch that.
friend of the pod, Bud
Friend
Dwyer.
of the pod, Bud Dwyer. The only ethical politician. Anyway, maybe we got to cut this out of the promo.
No. We're leaving it in. We're leaving it in, folks. So yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll be going live all day. I'm aiming for 9 to 5. Like, I think I'm just gonna go 8 hours. You're welcome to join for all 8 hours if you want. We'll be having guests throughout the day. We'll be riffing. We'll be having fun. And we're definitely gonna go from at least 9 till 3, which is when the trade deadline is. That's Eastern time. So join us in the day of the trade deadline. It should be a lot of fun.
We might have a special guest who might have been the 44th president of the United States. So tune in to catch that. I said might.
Possible. Maybe.
I said might, by the way. I said might, but who knows? Will Barack Obama come on the stream? We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's got plenty of free time now that he didn't buy the Phoenix Suns. So
right, exactly. Yeah. And he did say that he appreciates that we're the only anti-Nazi podcast with a stated anti-Nazi
NBA
slant.
Podcast.
NBA podcast. No one else has said that yet. So,
So shout out to Barack, our guy.
Yeah.
So before we get into anything else, we have some real slop that we're going to get to in a little bit. Some articles from Shams and Jake Fisher and Mark Stein. But we have some theoretical slop that I wanted to drop on you. I haven't told you what I wanted to talk about here.
Okay.
But it was something that I had mentioned on a podcast about a month ago. I went on Chucking Darts, and we talked about the idea behind trading Tyrese Maxey. And the thing that was asked to me by Chuck was, who is the worst player that you would trade for Tyrese Maxey? And what my response was, well, me personally, I don't think I've said it before on the podcast. I'm not really high on the Sixers championship odds this season. I don't really think that their window is realistic unless there's some sort of crazy trade or cosmic luck that could happen to them. So I basically replied and said, Maxey's one of the only things that gives me joy about the Sixers. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA. And I wouldn't trade him for anything less than like a top 20 player. So like Jimmy Butler, Paul George, Kevin Durant, like the kind of guys that like he might not even be realistically in trades for. And that was my response. And I said, but if you're going all in on this season and your goal is to win a title, you probably could work out a trade that is for a lesser player that is a better fit, that fits things that the Sixers need on this roster. And I wouldn't do it. But at the time, it was when we were talking about the Toronto Raptors blowing it up, which we will still talk about today. And OG Anunoby was the name that I brought up. And I basically said a Maxey for Anunoby swap could make sense for both teams. Once again, I don't want to do this. And I do find it funny. The Sixers fans that gave me shit for suggesting that we could trade Tyrese Maxey for Donovan Mitchell last offseason are some of the same people now saying we need to trade him for X wing. And OG Anunoby is one of the names that has come up in the conversation. I wouldn't do it. I'm just saying it is an idea. Spike Eskin brought it up apparently on the Rights to Ricky Sanchez recently, and it had people talking. And it's not something I would do, but if you need a defensive wing who can stay on the court offensively, who can guard the Jason Tatums, who can try to compete with the Giannis's, the Jimmy Butlers, OG is about as good as you're going to get from a defensive wing standpoint that can stay on the court offensively and would certainly make a lot of sense around Joel Embiid, James Harden pick and roll. Would certainly make more sense if you could start Melton and then OG at the 4 and Tobias at the 3, or vice versa, OG at the 3. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and where Sixers fans are at in their mindset. Because I didn't tell you this before the podcast. This is something that I dropped on you just now, and I wanted to hear what your thoughts were.
You're just telling me for the first time? This is the first time I've heard it. Wow. Tyrese Maxey.
He lived a great life.
He was a hell of a point guard. He was a hell of a point guard for the 76ers. And now he's on the bench. He's on the bench. But you want to send PJ Tucker to the bench? You got to get a different guy. Yeah, I mean, I think it could make sense for both teams. The primary barrier to this is I think Masai is in like full on Danny Ainge mode right now. Yeah. And I think if he actually is going to trade OG Anunoby, he will trick somebody into paying more than Tyrese Maxey for him. I think they are pretty comparable players, honestly, like all in all. OG Anunoby, he does have value in that he plays a position of need, in that like pretty much every team that's not the Boston Celtics needs OG Anunoby or like some, a player like him. So
mostly because you have to beat the Boston Celtics to get to the finals as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like he solves a lot of like the problems there. So yeah, I mean, I think, the Sixers would probably have to put in a little bit more if this trade were to like realistically work. But this is like where you get down to like with your young guys. I'm sure Sixers fans have run into this on the same way that Celtics fans run into this. You get attached to your own guys, and it's like not necessarily like the best thing in the world to like trade them. Even if you win the trade, it can be a little bit of a Pyrrhic victory. Like I don't know. Like, well, I'm part of the reason I'm so insane about this Celtics season is there's like a real chance Boston that like Rob Williams and Marcus Smart win a title as Boston Celtics, which is like not something I thought was possible 2 years ago, and would mean a lot to me, like sentimentally, and just like there's very few guys on that Sixers roster who I would think you guys have that kind of attachment to. It'd be like Embiid and then
that's it.
Maxey. Yeah. Like Maxey would be the other one. Yeah. So,
and Paul Reed, of course.
Right. And it's like, how much do you want to sell that out? Because really when you're trading Maxey, you're deciding, okay, we are not hedging against the James Harden thing and like his flight risk. We are all in on James Harden. He is going to be our future, and our team is going to go until he is done or old or whatever, and then we'll have to figure out something else. So that is risky. Like, I get the idea that, like, if you want to maximize your window for this year. And by the way, I don't know if I think you did listen to Zach and Jeff Van Gundy today. They talked about the Sixers, and I kind of am inclined to agree with them. Window's open for everybody right now. I mean, I think the Celtics are kind of ramping up into like peak form, and will probably be like pretty scary. But like, you've seen the Warriors beat the Celtics last year, and I still don't really think they were the better team. I guess Steph Curry was the best player on the court, and that's what matters, is just having the best player on the court. But the Sixers are going to be in a position where if Joel Embiid doesn't have another freak injury, if Pascal Siakam doesn't fucking destroy his face again or something like that.
Part of the reason why you do this trade is because you're trying to make it so that the Raptors can't get into the playoffs and kill your best player.
Yeah, and just injure you. But the thing is, Joel Embiid gives you that best player in the series like upside if he's like not hurt. That's the bet. I think it's a relatively smart bet. Like, he's been in the MVP conversation every year, continues to be in the MVP conversation. I don't know, like,
he's actually having his best season too. Like that, right. That's the thing, is like, even though it's probably going to be overshadowed because he's been runner-up for MVP for 2 straight seasons, and everything we've talked about with the MVP stuff, like, this is the best version of Joel Embiid, somewhat due to context, the fact that he's playing with the best half-court playmaker that he's ever played with in James Harden. Yeah. And then also the fact that he's just an extremely efficient scorer who can score at multiple levels, who's a beast defensively still when he actually gives a fuck. Yeah. And that's your argument for making a trade for OG, making a push for this year specifically. And like you said, marrying yourself to Harden and saying, he's staying after the season. We don't give a fuck about that. Mm-hmm. What it comes down to for me is there's a few things, because the one thing that I'm most hesitant about, and look, maybe this is just something that you can't really be hesitant about. Obviously, I have an emotional investment in Maxey, so I can't think straight on this stuff. And objectively speaking, I do think the Sixers would have a better chance of winning the title this year if they made this kind of trade. For any wing that can capably guard the best players in the NBA, also extremely good team defender, I actually kind of think that you could probably run some small ball lineups with OG at the 5, even in the playoffs, that could be super effective and just try to outscore teams. I think that there are ways that you could maximize the team after this kind of trade. And objectively speaking, I agree. The 2 things that I'm the most concerned about is, like, as great as Embiid has been, he still has not had that peak performance in the playoffs in the way that other stars have. And you would, and once again, you're married to Harden and Embiid right now. So especially Embiid. So maybe that's a moot point, and you say, well, he's already our best player. Like, we're not improving on Joel Embiid. Well, James Harden also has a track record of struggling, especially in elimination games. Doc Rivers has a history of collapsing. And one of the reasons why I've been so high on Maxey is because I think that he's been kind of, even though he's going to present his own issues, especially what we've seen with that defensive backcourt, even though I think some of the stuff is overstated. Like, we'll talk about in this podcast how Bill says that, SGA destroyed Maxey. Like, you can't go into a playoffs with that as your backcourt, with Maxey as your primary on another guy. But then 5 minutes later, he says it doesn't matter who guards SGA. It could be Marcus Smart, and he's going to kill them.
Yeah, that like literally happened. Like, he like SGA, like, Smart did like okay by him. But I mean, that's why I'm so impressed with SGA and why he's such a high caliber player. It's because he can do that to the reigning defensive player of the year. Like,
exactly.
The
best guard defender in the NBA. Like that's the kind of like conversations that we're going to need to have. But it is true that I think that the defensive backcourt is going to be a liability. And I think it's even more of a liability because the Sixers don't have the wings to make up for this. Like, if they had elite help wings, if they had guys who could guard down and up, and they could kind of do what Tobias can do from time to time, but all the time, this wouldn't be as much of an issue to me. I think there would be ways to hide those guys in the playoffs in certain matchups, but not when you also have your best wing is Tobias Harris, and he's just, He's good, but he's not an elite defensive wing by any means.
I mean, I think that the proof is in the pudding there with like some of Thibault's like on-off splits. You know what I'm saying? Like just how much they're hurting for like a defensive wing that even Thibault's like offensive woes can't sink him. Like that's how badly starved they are for like capable wing defense. Like so, there's a lot of stuff here. I mean, look, I'm a big proponent of, I think there is something to kind of like spacing out your team. I also think everybody's got a shot, like to a certain extent. Like, I think any of the top 5 teams could come out of the East with a little bit of luck. Like, I think most of these teams are like a couple good matchups and like another Jaylen Brown adductor injury away from like being in the driver's seat,
Sure.
So
and I do think most of that is going to come down to who, and once again, you said this earlier, it's like, who's the best player in the series? Yeah. And, while guys like OG and wings of that caliber can give you some advantages defensively, I think it ultimately comes down to like, can Kevin Durant be the best player in a series? Can Embiid be the best player in a series? Can Tatum be the best player in a series? Yep. And then Boston probably has them, and Tatum probably have the most room for error because the fact that they have such a great team built around him. But I also think that like this would, while temporarily it might improve the Sixers' odds this year, I still think that this Sixers team has the same flaws as even the 18-19 team that everyone was so high on, which is that even if you make a trade like this, even if you keep the roster as it is, they still only have like 5 guys you can trust. And like, having 5 guys you can trust, and then also on top of that, having some matchup issues with the way that the team is constructed right now is something that could be just bite them in the ass come playoff time. So even if Embiid or Harden really ball out in the playoffs, the Sixers' margin for error might not be the same as some of these teams that have better depth, have more matchup versatility. Some of that is actually due to the fact that Joel Embiid is a drop center. You can't really run a lot of other coverages. And all of it basically comes down to me is like it's hard because you can't really say I want to see Harden and Embiid do it for a playoff run because Harden has the flight risk after the season, and if they lose in the first or second round, Embiid could easily ask out and it's over. So none of this stuff is going to happen in the next 3 weeks. Like Maxey's not getting traded. They basically called him untouchable this past offseason outside of some insane trade becoming available. And I think it's kind of like you want the best of both worlds where like you could see whether Harden and Embiid have that, but also there's a possibility that this is it for them. And this is their really their last shot and their best shot to win a title. And even Morey himself admitted earlier in the season on a podcast that like maybe their championship window might be shorter than they had originally anticipated just due to the fact that like they traded for Harden at 33 and Embiid has his health issues and all of that stuff. So like, long story short, I know it won't happen. But I do think that I think that these are the kind of things that when we get to the offseason, if Harden is willing to come back, if Embiid wants to still be here in Philly, I hope that they would try to find another coach to figure out whatever this version of this team is. But if not, you always can fall back on the Maxey plus Tobias expiring contract to go get star player or multiple role players that will fit better around the guys that you have.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. Honestly, I think kind of the other best, if the Sixers don't win the title, I think the other best case scenario for them, honestly, this offseason is losing in the first round, but Harden and Embiid stay and tough it out and do the good soldier thing, because that's the surest fire way to get Doc fired. Yeah. Who I think is the primary hindrance to this team, because boy, they sure. I mean, I know I'm. This is so mean, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Boy, wouldn't Isaiah Joe be like good on this team?
Yeah, like, I know, it's really fucking annoying.
Yeah, but the reason why this happened with the Boston Celtics, this happened with every Doc Rivers team. He just won't play these guys. Like he won't try to find. And you need that when you're a team that it does have only 5 guys you can trust. you need to play that game. That's one of credit to Eric Spoelstra. That's what makes Eric Spoelstra really stand out is he will figure out how to rotate guys in and out of the rotation until he can find a guy, he can find that 6th and 7th guy that will really pull their rotation to guy. And he seems to fucking do it every year.
He has 3 new guys in the rotation this year that I don't even think are good, but he's at least trying. Orlando Robinson, Jamal Cain, and Hayward Highsmith. Mm-hmm. At least he's giving them shots and seeing if they can kind of fit in different alterations of different rotations of shit that could work. And Doc is just unwilling to do that a lot of the time. And it is unfortunate.
Well, and I think that's what you need to do when you're a team when you're a team like that. I mean, the Celtics have gotten really lucky in that they've had, they were able to build their contender with all of these draft picks. And they could afford the Neesmith and the Langford misses because you just have such a huge amount. Or even making a mistake like trading the Desmond Bane pick for $5 million years doesn't matter. All that is a wash, and then you can start spending your first round draft picks on the last few guys. Part of that is also just having Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, your 2 best players, be the most rare things in the league. That makes team building way easier because you can just target guards like Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White and centers and stuff like that. But everybody else, most other championships, the Warriors are doing this. The Bucks have done this with Pat Connaughton. A lot of times you're finding your 5th to 6th guys with what seems like fringe rotation moves with 2nd round picks, guys who are out of the league. You need that unless you are the Memphis Grizzlies or the Boston Celtics or one of these teams that just has an absurd amount of draft capital tied up in guys.
Sure.
And that's going to make the difference. I mean, Moody and Wiseman, Kuminga less so, but those guys who were supposed to be their big performers are not really in the rotation anymore. And it's these other undrafted guys that are kind of making the difference for that.
Undrafted and MLE and the margin moves that we always talk about. And it's frustrating, but also I'm kind of in the boat of, well, by the way, this is not going to happen sometime in the next few weeks. If anything, these kind of trades would happen in the offseason. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of in the wait and see mode for the deadline. I've said before, I think that it's going to be a slow deadline in general. And I think you're better off waiting until the last week to see who's still available. You're better off waiting until the week of the trade deadline and seeing can we flip Matisse Thybulle and Furkan Korkmaz's contract for Jay Crowder because there's no other buyers and they just want to get something back for him because he's not going to stay there. And from everything we've heard, all the offers are dog shit for him or they're just not really existent. So those are the kind of moves that I would hope. It's where Crowder might be able to provide you with 60 to 70% of what you can get from OG. Mm-hmm. And then you can try to make it so that you have a little bit more depth. And then I really do think that Maxey can potentially be a swing piece in a playoff series where look, maybe he's not the best defender in the world, but we talked about it before. He's moved to this 6-man role. He's going to be playing off the bench more. Jordan Poole is a terrible defender. And he came in and actually had some pretty big games for the Warriors in the playoffs last year. I know that they're different kind of players, but they're in the same mold of scorer, guy who can come in off the bench, give you buckets. And I don't know. I just think it's funny that the fan base that was Maxey's untouchable. I had someone tweet at me the other day, I would not trade Maxey for Paul George. And then I went back and I found a tweet from him from the summer that was by the way, I'm not giving up Maxey for Donovan Mitchell. At a certain point, I will say, yes, you have to make these kind of moves. But for guys OG, who's very good, but he's not a star level 2-way player, I'm just willing to wait because there's potential that you lose this kind of trade and it can be the end in the same way as not doing anything and hoping that Maxey develops into either a star or someone who can net you a star back would. So I don't know. I just think that there's just too much talent to just make marginal upgrades for me. And I know OG would be a massive upgrade for the Sixers wing rotation, but that is a move that I'm only really willing to do in this offseason when like maybe that's your last kind of shot move. Like I just am like, I'm not willing to do it right now.
I would only be doing this if I had like good scary intel that, hey, if we don't do anything, Embiid is going to ask out and Harden is going to leave. Like I think that's like the only situation where you would need to do this.
And I think that Morey knows that that's not going to happen, or else he would be way more aggressive.
I kind of get the impression that like ownership is like, you can't fire this guy until there's at least one more year off the contract because we're not paying that. Yeah, I think everyone knows that Doc is like a lame dunk, but like, are they going to let him play out his whole contract? Or like, how cheap is? Well, Josh Harris has got to start saving money. He's got another team to buy here.
Got to buy the Commanders, the commies.
Yeah, he's going to buy the commies.
Yeah, our comrade Josh Harris.
That's going to be such an opportunity for him where he can. That's such a there can't be many ownership opportunities where he's a better guy than the guy he's replacing. like that, even among billionaires, like that's got to be like hard for him. So real low standards. So
he's going to be the people of Washington D.C. will love Josh Harris in comparison to fucking Dan Snyder. Not really. The bar is below hell.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But so one last thing on this Doc Maxey thing, because Maxey obviously he moved to the bench recently. It's something that some Sixers fans have wanted for a while. Doc is now saying that there's going to be 3 different rotation starting lineups based on matchup, which I actually don't hate that, because I think that there are certain matchups where when you're playing a smaller team, you can get away with starting Melton in the 3-guard lineup. I think that like when you're playing a bigger team, Maxey coming off the bench might make a little bit more sense. But ultimately, he's playing starters minutes and PJ's playing bench player minutes now. So it doesn't really matter to me when they start. But it is funny. Doc said, Maxey called him and told him that was it was Maxey's idea. Like he
because that's the only way Doc would do something this creative. That's what that's why I'm like shaking my head. Yeah.
It's not true though.
Why?
Because Maxey said in the press conference, there's a clip of Maxey talking in the press conference, and he's basically like, yeah, it is what it is. I had a feeling it was trending in this direction anyway. And, I feel like I'm a starting caliber player and like I'm playing starters minutes and I want to do whatever I can to help the team win. But sometimes you just got to be a bigger person. And I'm like, this was not Maxey's idea at all. Doc literally just got up there and just like he has now been caught in a lie at least 2, maybe 3 times this year.
I wonder if like Maxey even happen. Well, I wonder if like Maxey even knew that he was like gonna say that and just had to was just an on the spot thing where he just had to like, I guess I'm okay with it. What? Yeah, all right. Like, sure.
Well, it was so last second that people at the game, Sixers fans at the game, told me that he was there, that they announced Maxey as part of the starting lineup. So they were in LA, and the LA guy was like starting at point guard Tyrese Maxey, and then Maxey was not starting. So like it was so last second that they didn't even know. So it's always something with Doc.
I'll always respect that, like, guy wins a championship for you, you can't. But god damn it, dude, do I not miss having Doc Rivers as my coach? God damn, dude, it was just.
Did you hear the Ty Lue story that he told on Old Man in the 3?
No.
All right, so when Ty Lue first got the job with the Celtics as an assistant coach, Doc said, "I want you to go watch our film from last year in the playoffs." To get us prepared for this year and write a scouting report on all the games from last year and the teams that we're going to face again this year in the playoffs potentially. And so he wrote up this whole thing on the Heat and all these teams that they were going to play in the playoffs. And then he was like, yeah, Doc just never read it.
That makes me furious. Like Ty Lue is like one. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Ty Lue. I think he's like one of the best coaches. You've got him on your staff. God, Doc just loves golfing. Like
it's amazing. It's amazing. But it's also funny because it's like like, I don't know, like you can do the thing that like a lot of coaches do. People were giving Patrick Ewing shit for this at Georgetown, but like, but like sometimes you just let your assistant coaches like be like take the lead on those things, because Popovich does it all the time, because he's just like, we're molding future head coaches. We want to have multiple guys, but Doc wants to take all the credit for everything, and he just completely ignores his assistants who are trying to put in the work. Like Sam Cassell said in an interview that he told Doc, like, Doc didn't want to play Maxey real minutes because he was like, he can't shoot. And then he was like, he can shoot though. Like, I've seen him shoot in practice. Like, he can shoot. Like, we just got to get him in a rhythm.
Like, can you imagine being on that Clipper staff with like Doc, and then there's like the 1B leading like Lawrence Frank? Like how much like
Lawrence Frank, was Ty Lue, Sam Cassell, like all these great assistants.
Yeah. Oh God, I just.
It's incredible.
I don't know. I'm not like Daryl Morey. I mean, that is we can talk about that. Remains my appraisal of the Sixers is that like I actually think Morey's done a good job finding guys who can play on the edges and like putting them in the in the Sixers, like getting them in camp, getting them with the coaches, and just Doc's just gonna like. Didn't Doc banish Shake Milton for like a bunch of his like early seasons too?
He always. So the thing is, we think that he always did like Shake. The one thing about Shake was that he dropped 39 points on the Clippers when Doc was coach once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There it is. The Byron Mullins.
Yeah, it was it was the opposite, where Shake actually wasn't performing and he was playing Shake over Maxey, and we were like, Maxey should get Shake's minutes because Shake is just, he couldn't hit a shot. He was really struggling for a stretch. So, but we were like, he'll never not see that in Shake. And I love Shake, but like Maxey's very obviously the better overall player. But okay, so let's get into some slop roundup, because we actually have some slop. I'm sorry, folks. We're trying to dig up as much possible slop, but it feels like everything's been recycled this slop season, and we will try to get as much fresh slop as possible. And this is really just the result of our favorite team in the NBA, the Toronto Raptors, being at the center of this slop season, because essentially they are the gatekeepers of the slop right now. They are the team that are teetering on the fence. Whether all we know is that based on the Shams reports, based on the Jake Fisher reports, they're going to do something in one way or another. Sam has brought up multiple times the idea of maybe they should actually go in the other direction, try to acquire talent to compete this year, as opposed to, trading away all their guys and resetting or rebuilding. And it sounds like from this Jake Fisher article, he basically said they're going to do something. From all the intel he's gathered, they've been telling teams they're either going to try to pursue a few guys, or they're going to make at least a few minor moves with some key players on the team. Gary Trent Jr. is obviously the one they're most likely to trade. And this excerpt was the freshest piece of slop from this thing that I need to read to you and just get your take on this.
Okay.
Because
is this Fisher?
This is from Jake Fisher's article. Yes.
Okay. I'm inherently a little skeptical of Fisher, more so than some of the other guys. Like,
he's been hit or miss.
Yeah.
He's been hit or miss. He's had like the one off season he absolutely crushed. And since then it's been more of like a 50-50 thing. But I will say with Jake, a lot of the times he'll report something and then Shams or Woj will back it up later, even if it doesn't happen. So I will say that like I'm willing to give him more than like I honestly think he's kind of more reliable than like Mark Stein, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Like and especially the other guys that are more on the fringes, that kind of write for the heavy.coms and those kind of websites. But he said okay, what would the return look for in a Trent trade? Because something that I had brought up when I went on Trucking Darts was that any trade that they make is probably going to look similar to the Norm Powell trade they made for Gary Trent Jr. in the first place, right? Yeah. Like I talked about this, like I've been talking about this for a little bit. Like I think they're going to want to look for a guy a cheaper, younger guy. And Jake basically backed that up in this article. But this part was hysterical to me. Toronto has shown interest in Hornets forward Jalen McDaniels. Okay. Charlotte's fourth-year forward would fit the same bill that Trent did 2 years ago. He's set to hit restricted free agency this summer, where teams are projecting McDaniels to command a far lower salary than Gary Trent Jr., roughly $10 million per season, in the ballpark of the full non-taxpayer mid-level. Now, if you know anything about McDaniels, which I don't know much, I'm going to be completely honest, because I know his brother, obviously, Jaden. I'm not as familiar with Jalen, but just based on the stats and from what people have told me, he's basically a defensive first wing. So
perfect. The grossest games of all time. Let's get rid of the only person ever since Fred VanVleet, whatever happened to Fred VanVleet, the only player on our team that can shoot, and just like make these just even grosser. He really is like, this is what makes me so that actually makes me think the Hornets are going to sell, because like this is all poker face, maybe this might
Hornets
be
or the Raptors.
The Raptors, because this is the other thing, because I think just looking at the Raptors objectively, I stand by my analysis that I think you could make like a pretty decent team out of this squad with a couple of trades. Like, it just, the pieces don't fit. You trade one of these forwards, you can get a great return for it. The thing that is different,
like OG Anunoby for Tyrese Maxey,
right? Yes, no, like not even kidding. Yeah, like something like that, like, or yeah, like sending OG to like the Thunder for like 12 of their guys and like a bunch of picks or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever that is. But the problem is, like we alluded to at the top, they're the guardians of the slop. Masai is the Immortum Joe, like holding all the water above Raintown, sending everybody like to the bullet farm and the gas farm to bring back their best offers. Like he's sending Furiosa out into the wilds of Mad Max to like bring back whatever the best thing. And I just think it's too tempting because they are the only sellers. Like if you put OG Anunoby on the table in a lot of
we should differentiate. I was going to say we should differentiate. They're the only sellers that have players that teams want.
Yes, right.
Because the other sellers are the Hornets and the Spurs, and no one really gives a shit about most players on their team.
Well, everyone seems to be coming down on the fact that it's like it would be OG Anunoby would be the one traded, because Toronto's inherent team building problem is they have three players who are extremely similar in OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Scotty Barnes, who are all their like hypothetically best players. Scotty's had a rough year. Maybe some people want to get off Scotty. Masai is not dumb enough to sell Scotty at this low point. Yeah. So I think Scotty is out. I think what other teams are really looking at is like, will they pull the big swing, which is Pascal Siakam, where you could like really get a lot of good stuff for like Pascal Siakam. Like, will the Suns be freed from Robert Sarver hell and finally get like a green light to like save their season, basically? And
their new owner's trying. He's like, Wendy said that he's like, please, and they're just like, it's not going to happen in time.
That's brutal. But like, someone like that, like, but everybody else who's selling, like, what's like the other good players, it's like what Detroit really only has like Bojan Bogdanovic.
He's too old for Toronto to take a stand. Yeah, like good player, but like
I just don't think there's anybody. And the thing is, you're going to have to compete with like the Lakers and other teams that are like have more imperative, like are in like much more dire situations than the Raptors.
Yes, a lot of teams in desperation mode interested.
Yeah. So like I don't know. I think I'm starting to think the Raptors are going to sell now, just because there is such an opportunity here just by being a seller in a time when there's not that many sellers at the deadline, but just because of the league and where everything is.
I've been saying I'm just skeptical of the Raptors at all selling in any capacity, because they just it's not really been their history to be that team. But it is a different conversation if you're talking about trying to take advantage of a market that is just completely desperate for any good, valuable players to be moved. And in this article, they basically said it would take a DeJounte Murray type haul for them to move on from OG, which I part of me is like, are they actually going to sell? And another part of me is like, or does Masai really just like being the center of attention and having everyone be like at like come knee and I'll, like,
this is
kneel in front of me.
Well, this is the Danny Ainge shit. Like, like you ask an absurd price. Who knows? Someone just takes one. Like, and if somebody will give you that for OG and Anunoby, like,
do it.
Sure. Like, well, why not? But I'm talking about, that's all about like making the Raptors make sense in the long run, which I don't even think is their mission for this thing. Someone like Gary Trent Jr., like if you put him on the market with the amount of money he makes, with how much time is left on his contract, in a lot of trade deadlines, he'd be like someone you couldn't get much for. Like he'd probably you'd be able to get like a second round pick or like some sort of interesting young player.
20 protected first.
Yeah, something like that. You could get like a real decent young player or a first round pick for Gary Trent Jr., I think, like this trade deadline, just because he is a shooting like third guard wingish. You know what I'm saying? Like
he might be the best player moved. Like there's not a ton of guys. Like, I mean, it's like who knows if the Wizards are really interested in keeping Kuzma, or they're just, they're prepared to pay him $35 million a year just so that they don't lose him. Like,
it would also make the Raptors totally unwatchable and put them in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, because their team would just immediately make even less sense than it does now. So
that's what I'm saying is like, because the Fred VanVleet rumors that we're hearing from Shams and Jake Fisher, Jake made it seem like they really don't want to move on from Fred. It does seem like, I've been saying for a while, it seems like he's a core piece. But the two teams interested in him in the Shams article were Phoenix and Orlando. And both of those teams could probably get close to having cap space this summer. I don't know if they could get enough cap space. Orlando certainly could. I don't know if Phoenix could have enough cap space to realistically sign Fred VanVleet. But if that is the case, then like, I'd probably just wait. Like, why would the Magic? Like, I know Bill's been on this whole thing about like the Magic should try to be more competitive. They're only blah blah blah. And then I'm like, well, the Magic their two best players are like 19 or 20 and 21, and like they're good, but like, what are they going to be, the 10 seed and losing the play-in? Like, I don't think that they're quite there yet. And even an upgrade like Fred VanVleet, like, what would it take to get him? I think
that's the bigger problem.
Why you're not trading future picks when your team's bad right now? Like, I think that's these are the kind of moves that will just wait until the off season.
See, I do think that there is a real upside to making that type of like when the Celtics bought Isaiah Thomas, like at the trade deadline, like that really changed their team and their timelines and stuff.
But what did they trade for him?
It was a first round pick.
One first round pick. You're not, and Masai is not going to deal one of his baby boys for one first round pick.
But this is and that's the problem. That's why that's the real reason that's not going to happen. I think Bill's logic is like relatively sound. I do think making your team make sense earlier, even if like there is like a Wembanyama sweepstakes. This is my whole thing. Like, I don't think like tanking if your team is close enough to being good. Like tanking if you're a team that's just bad, like Detroit. Detroit is in a very natural tank right now, where just Cade goes down, boom, that's it. Like you're a young team. You tried with Bojan.
But like the Magic are 4 games out of the 10 seed right now. Like, it's you're putting if they were 4 games out of the 6 seed, I would be like, okay, that makes sense to me. But like, the odds of you getting to the play-in and losing are probably higher than you even making it to the playoffs.
I just think that division is so bad. I feel like they're going to have I think they have a division heavy schedule the rest of the way too. Like, I think there's a lot of like Hawks Heat, those kind of games in the back half of the season. Anyway, the point here is the real reason that's a problem is because you can afford to be opportunistic if you're a young team that is in no rush. And now is not the time to be buying because, as we just went over, it is a seller's market right now.
Yeah.
So you don't. So that's the real thing holding it up is that.
And you have a road to cap space this summer. They have a ton of non-guaranteed contracts. And like, if Fred VanVleet really wanted to play for the Magic, which they would have to have information on in order to trade for him in the first place, then just wait until the offseason and give him a bag and just hope that, you know, as long as you don't get Scoot or something in the draft, like you're pretty much not really running into any sort of conflict there. Like I think that you could.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to have space for Fred and Kyrie Irving. So.
Yes, it's true. The DeVosses are like, bring me Kyrie.
They're like a little confused by his politics, but they want to hear it out. They want to get him in a room with Jonathan Isaac. They're like, So look, there's some stuff. Yeah, but we can get there. Let's get Jonathan in the room and let's hash this out.
Oh, speaking of Kyrie, who is out tonight, but has apparently struggled since KD went out. I mean, it's only been 2 games, and one of the games was against the Celtics. I'll give him some time, but I did see some Nets fans saying like Kyrie without KD is basically just CJ McCollum, which is it's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, so Kyrie having
I don't want Bloach to kill us here either. Huge Kyrie stan.
Yeah, here's what I'll say about Kyrie. Kyrie is like a fascinating. I don't know. I do feel like very privileged that I got to watch Kyrie Irving like play on my team. Like he really is just so fun to watch. He's an amazing player.
With the ball.
He is like one of just the most, you know, incredible players. And honestly, like we didn't have to deal even on the Celtics, like just like threats of him leaving really isn't that bad, you know, like you never anything like what's happened in like his Nets tenure or anything like that.
Him being moody.
Right, like exactly.
Worst.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, what you pissed off Jaylen Brown and whatever. Like that happens on teams. But you know, I think he is capable of like locking in. The problem with Kyrie is it's just like that consistency, and it's just like, are you really sure he's gonna be like ready? You know what I'm saying? Because I've seen it. I've seen him be ready. The first game of that Celtics series, I was like, oh fuck, like it's ready Kyrie. But then they lost that game, and then he kind of let go of the rope.
He did the same thing. Same thing in the Bucks series when he was on the Celtics. I remember watching that game, and him and Horford were like incredible, and then the Bucks just took over from there. But you'll get it. The moments are just fleeting, and especially at this point in his career. But
he will be an all-star though. So
he'll always have the fan and player respect. Like I think that.
I honestly think he might like. I think he might have gotten in anyway.
No, I agree. From a on-court performance, I put him on my all-star team. Like I was
gonna say, I think we both did, right?
Yeah. He was one of my last picks, but and then Bloach got mad at me because I started Halliburton over him, but I'll stand by that, especially now.
He's Bloach has like Lathan Heathen power, so I don't want to like cross him because he like somehow willed into like being this reality where KD was always like willing to stay, and like I get like there's like a Mandela effect going on, like where I guarantee you that like isn't what happened, but Bloach like pulled that timeline into reality around us, like just like sheer force of will. So like, I don't want to like make him mad, like crossing Kyrie and just get phased into a reality where I'm like in the Amazon surrounded by piranhas or like some other death defying, like in the French Revolution about to be guillotined or something like that. Like,
Bloach, the number 1 KD stan, somehow got through to Zach Lowe and was like, you will say that Scotty Barnes is a future 10-time All-Star. There will be no market for Kevin Durant this summer. Every podcast in the NBA, you influence all of them. You need to say that no one would want to trade player X for. Oh my God! Speaking of teams that could have traded for Kevin Durant, that I'm glad did not in retrospect. Although would be a lot of fun to see them in the Western Conference playoffs. Yeah, man, I know Brandon Ingram. I love Brandon Ingram. He's missed a lot of time this year, but. If the Pelicans had traded Brandon Ingram for KD,
they'd be the favorites. They'd be the favorites.
Absolutely. I mean, if you remain relatively healthy, they'd be running away in terms of playoff equity for for the West. And I like some teams in the West, but I think that they would be on another level.
What's the downside there? They're like Zion gets moody because KD is like the new alpha. I like doubt it. I really doubt it. Like,
yeah. Also, like, how do you stop a KD Zion offense? Like I think there could be some potential, there's potential for synergy there as well. Yeah. Like, that's the thing is like KD and Zion are both could be effective off the ball as scorers as well. So like, yeah, I'm just kind of the mindset.
We said this in the offseason.
We were like, and we both like Brandon Ingram, but we were like, he's not Kevin Durant. Like
he's not Kevin Durant. And I think we both saw coming what maybe some people didn't see coming, that the Pelicans were going to be like real contenders in the West, which I think a lot of people sort of considered them baby brother and were like maybe not as sold on like Zion coming back or like, some of this other stuff. But man, hats off to David Griffin.
I was going to say, in defense of David Griffin, it's not very often that you get a star who likes to play in New Orleans, and Brandon Ingram does, and like that's true. He likes it there, and also that was the AD trade was such a massive home run for the Pelicans because not only did they get all these draft picks, but they also got a real all-star out of it. So like, so that's also attached to it. But like, man, you could have turned it into a grand slam by getting Kevin Durant, but who knows? I don't know. But either way, Shams did drop a little slop treat for us. Mm-hmm. This was not reporting, but he said on his show today, if they want to get serious with OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam, they're the team. They have all the picks in the world, and if they want to send a haul, and this is something that we've been kind of begging for, which is them to make a real splash move at this deadline to like take their like nice, fun young team that is currently a contender when healthy to like, oh shit, this team is really scary and they have no holes in their rotation. And I really want them to trade for OG Anunoby. Like that's my favorite destination.
It would be like the ultimate agenda thing for me.
Yeah.
Because the like, for example, the Grizzlies also have the ammo to like make a trade like this, and they will never do it.
No.
And they will never do it. If David Griffin does this and then the Pelicans just annihilate the Grizzlies, like that would be such a delightful treat for me and my agendas and how I think team building is done in the NBA. That said, yeah, I mean, I guess, like what? I mean, Herb Jones and OG Anunoby and
if you could hang on to, so like that's the thing is like, are you trading? You probably trade like Dyson Daniels and 2 firsts. I think that was the trade that we came up with before. It was like Dyson Daniels, Devontae Graham's contract, and 2 firsts for OG Anunoby, assuming that Toronto's really high on Dyson. Then that
should be, by the way.
And he's very good. I think he's going to be awesome.
Like, so he's an actual like young player chip. He's probably like the 6th or 7th best player in that from that draft, if I had to guess. Like right now, if you do a redraft,
and then your top end rotation would be, and the thing I love so much about an OG trade to the Pelicans is that the one thing I am concerned about is like when Jonas Valanciunas could prove to be unplayable in certain matchups. What is their pivot point? And I feel like getting OG makes it so that you could put OG at the 3, it's almost like it's weird to say that this would be going small because you would have Zion at the 4 and you would have Ingram at the 2. You could put Nance at center and you could put OG at 3 to help with the rim protection issues that you're probably going to have when you send Valanciunas to the bench. And also, I mean, I don't think you're ever going to be quite as good of a rebounding team when you send Valanciunas to the bench in the same way, but like just having a bunch of athletic wingy type guys out there that you
I always forget they have like Larry Nance.
And Larry Nance is your honestly, I think in the playoffs could prove to be more effective than Jonas Valanciunas in certain matchups. And if that's the case, like you have multiple starting options, you have the flexibility in the same way that the Grizzlies honestly did last year when Steven Adams wasn't playable in the Minnesota series. And then he was super important for them in the Warriors series. It would be cool to see them have some sort of flexibility where like you have a guy like OG who can play big, but he also can guard the guys at the perimeter, all the stuff we always talk positively about OG. And then, just another shooting threat. I mean, if you're able to keep Trey Murphy in this kind of trade, you would have so many like rangy wings. And I would really, really like that for the Pelicans. I'm still a little skeptical that they're going to make a splash move that big, But this is, if you're getting relative health from Zion and Ingram, I want to see them make a splash move that really bolsters their rotation and makes it so that they have like 7 or 8 guys that like are legit playoff performers and can just kind of play like in all different kinds of matchup versatility.
Yeah. So how about this though? So why go for OG? Why not do the Pascal ask?
I don't know. Pascal's kind of a weird fit on that team, but mainly because, well, first off, in order just to get the salary to trade for him, you probably have to trade Jonas Valanciunas or CJ McCollum. And I think they really like CJ. I know that there are going to be some defensive issues there, but like, I think that they really like him as a culture guy. I think they really like him as like the core guy that holds together that locker room. I think everyone respects him there. And then, so you'd probably have to move Jonas, Devontae Graham, who's been like one of the worst players in the NBA this season. It's crazy. He's still in their rotation. He's shooting like 25% from the field over the last few weeks. So you would probably get there with Valanciunas. And then the thing is that I think unless the Raptors really are just interested in those unprotected picks, which is possible they are. Maybe they just want like 4 unprotected firsts or something and swaps. Then I think it's something that you should consider. I don't know. It does feel like that's a lot of mid-range guys, a lot of guys that like to live inside the arc.
Well, is OG like a great shooter though? You know, like he's like a career 36% shooter or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean he's a better and more willing spot up shooter. He's shooting 52% from the corners over the last 2 seasons. Like that's really good. Like
that's pretty good. That's
one
Grant
of, I mean,
Williams,
it's like one of the best in the NBA.
Yeah.
And also keep in mind the Raptors tax that we always talk about, the lack of creation outside of Pascal Siakam to create open looks for guys. I think he would get a lot more in New Orleans than he would in Toronto. And I think that could be a determining factor. He's a better spot up shooter. And I like his defensive versatility a little bit more than Pascal Siakam, but Siakam's undeniably the better player.
So I get that. My thing would be if I were a team that were like really flush with assets the way the Pelicans were. Maybe not. Maybe Siakam's a bad example, but just I would try and do what the Cavs did, and like be in on like a top tier guy.
Yeah,
because they have the assets to add
the Mitchell type move. Yeah.
Yes. Which why we were losing our mind over the Durant thing, because like that's a perfect like example, you know. And like we always say, guys like this don't come often, and the only time that's ever been true is with Kevin Durant. Like
that's true.
Yeah. So
especially in that situation with the years on this deal.
Like, but you know, someone is gonna like, is Paul George gonna be available next year or something? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's gonna be. Oh, I don't know who it's going to be, but someone like that is going to be available this offseason. You know, like some team is going to eat shit and look different. Like, I don't know.
It's true. There will be options, but if you want to make a push this season, I think the thing that would hold them back from doing it at this deadline is we don't know what Zion has a hamstring. Ingram's been out way longer than we had anticipated. Like, I think that they might just be patient and say, let's see what our health is looking like, and then maybe we make our move this offseason. But I don't hate what Siakam would bring for them, just because I do think that Siakam is a very good player. Yeah. But I just am like, how many guys can you have that love to live in the same area?
That's a good point.
Like they need volume shooting, if anything, and I think that OG is more likely to be that spot up volume guy. Whereas like Siakam is just going to kind of compound a little bit of the mid-range issues, but certainly would be, from a talent perspective, I wanted them to trade for Mitchell too. Like I was like, fuck it, just make an all-in move for Donovan Mitchell. Like you could just make an unstoppable offense. And you know, now I either way they're going to be in a good position, but I did think it was interesting that he brought it up. I think they'll make a move at this deadline, but it will be more likely a more minor move for a Crowder, Kuzma, maybe Bojan type.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. The thing is, you know, to kind of counter what I just said, though, you know, I think the East is still kind of baby food. The West is still kind of baby food. Like, you could be in the finals way easier. I think it's way easier to talk yourself into being a big buyer in the West than it is in the East.
I have a hot take here. Not even hot. I don't think the Warriors are contenders.
Ooh.
I've gotten there. I watch the Warriors enough that I'm like, if this is your team that you're taking into the playoffs, and it's dumb, it's stupid. No one would ever advise you to bet against the Warriors with Clay, Steph, and Draymond. Like it's just like their history has proven time and time again that when you get to the playoffs, but like you got Draymond saying in an interview the other day that the writing's on the wall with him in Golden State. You got fucking him saying it's a business and that he understands and that all these guys need to get paid. And you got basically most of the leaks that they've put out there is that they're going to just hope for internal improvements and not for moves in the trade market, which like, I think if any team needs it, it is them. Like, I just don't really buy them as like, you never want to count out Steph, but like the vibes are off there this season.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm becoming more of like, when we get to the nitty gritty in the playoffs, I really still only trust their top end guys. And like, even then they've had shaky health all season. Like Steph got hurt again. Wiggins has been in and out of the lineup. Like Poole has been not nearly as good as he was last year. Like, I don't think that the Warriors are real championship level contenders unless they make a move to get one or two more rotation players in the next few weeks.
So before the season, the reason I was out on the Warriors is because for a lot of these reasons, because I didn't trust the depth. I didn't think the young guys were going to come along enough, and they're just more susceptible to injuries than other teams. I still think a lot of the reasons why they won the West last year are still in play, though. I think Klay Thompson is a better player and is going to continue to be better. I don't know. Jordan Poole kind of comes and goes. I do think that Kuminga has looked more ready.
He has, but he's also hurt.
As well. I mean,
yeah.
But I mean, like, I don't expect, like Zach Lowe said today on the podcast, like they might get up to 4th or something. He said something insane like that. I was like, that's not happening. That is not happening. What they could do is they could end up being like the 6th seed and be against the Grizzlies in like a 3-6 matchup and like win that.
Yeah.
Like
they're going to be the team no one wants to face for good reason, but like I don't see this team winning 4 playoff series based on anything I've seen.
I just don't with like I don't know, just the West is it is better than last year. And maybe this is me being affected because I was just so low on the Warriors that maybe I'm like, it's easier for me to kind of swing the other way.
Sure.
Because I still feel like the Warriors like had a extremely lucky run last year, just in terms of like the Celtics being beat up and like getting in their own head and like how easy the West was. And the West is still easy, but it's not as easy. Like you're probably gonna have to beat Jokic at some point in the Nuggets, who I think are the only like real true blue team out there, unless the Pelicans can get healthy. So I don't know. I'm not gonna write it off. Like Steph,
it's definitely possible, but I just want to say that like someone did, I think it was Will in the Discord, because it's always Will in the Discord.
Yeah.
Put together like the last 15 champions, what their record was halfway through the season.
Yeah.
And it was like every single one was like way better than what the Warriors are right now. And like, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe they have a chance to win the West just because the West is super flawed. Right now, if you put a gun to my head and said you got to pick a team to win the West, I would say the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets are performing at an extremely high level. I've been saying this for really since that like the Yoke miss day that everyone talked about, where they turned it around, and I think they just look unstoppable to me. That is the one matchup that the Nuggets are always going to struggle with just because of Steph. And every team that is built around a big is going to struggle with the Warriors matchup. Even a high-powered offense like a Jokic Nuggets offense is going to have some struggles with that matchup. But if the Nuggets can dodge them and like the Grizzlies or the Pelicans can knock off the Warriors, then I really think that the Nuggets should be like the clear favorite right now to me.
I think the Grizzlies, I know they've had they beat them in like playing games before. I don't think the Grizzlies should want that matchup at all. I think that's like their worst case scenario. Like
for the Warriors?
No, for the Grizzlies. I think that is the worst. That's like the worst matchup for the Grizzlies is someone who, I don't know. They think they can beat the Warriors. I know that they like took them to 6 and everything else last year. I think the Grizzlies would be better off like against like the Pelicans or someone like that. Like I honestly, like even though I don't know.
It might be a rock paper scissors thing, but I'm a little bit higher on what the Grizzlies can do in a Warrior series, but it is going to be incredibly hard for me to not pick the team with Steph Curry on it.
That's what I'm saying. Like it just Steph Curry. Like I'm not. I don't know. I'm not convinced Ja Morant is a 16-game player yet. I know he had huge games in the playoffs. I know. I know. I don't know if that is impact like something that actually impacts 16-game like winning. Like. And I've watched we've watched Steph Curry do it 1 billion times.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's fair.
But counterpoint, well, and also to counterpoint that factoid that Will had, I mean, do you think the Celtics had no chance of winning the championship last year?
I don't, but I also think
they had a really bad record.
I also think that was outlier performance. Like if we've talked about this before, if every team's answer to their bad start is, oh, we just got to do what the Celtics did last year, then it's like, it's not great because history suggests that most teams don't turn around and win. What do they win? 55 games or whatever after being like 500 halfway through the season. Like that just doesn't happen.
I mean,
it where the Warriors are right now.
It is like extremely dramatic, but like also like the Nets, like I don't know, the Nets had a pretty dramatic turnaround. Like they were fucking dead in the water like early on.
They started 1-5. Like they turned it around by game 20. Is the point here? Is like they were back up in like the top of the standings. Like their record is actually pretty good. Even recently with the 2 losses without KD, they're still 27-15. Like that's the kind of record that you would have at this point in the season if you're going to be a team that could win a title. So like. And look, Steph missed some games. Obviously, they could easily go on a run. I'm way more skeptical on them as contenders than I was coming into the season, and that's probably why I feel the way that I do.
I guess. Well, yeah, I think that is what it boils down to because I was just more skeptical of them, and this is like pretty in line with, I don't know, where I thought the Warriors would be. And I don't know. I think they are a 16-game team. I don't think the West is particularly strong, particularly like on its underbelly. And like, I don't know, like if they actually end up, like if they get up to like 6 or 5 or something, and for some reason that ends up being like the Clippers or something, there's a lot of scenarios where they only need to win 2 hard series. I don't think the Warriors would beat whoever came out of the East is the point here. That's like kind of where, but I could easily see them coming out of the West.
I think that's fair.
I would still pick the Nuggets as the thing because they're going to have the easier map. They're going to have the best player in a lot of these series, and I think we're in lockstep that the Nuggets are the team to beat in the West. But the Pelicans could make a move. I'm never going to believe in the small bean drafting team. I see all your comments. I'm dying on this hill.
We're going to do a podcast. We're going to have Keith from Fast Break Breakfast, who's a #1 Grizzlies fan. He's been on the podcast before, De'Anthony Melton guy. And we're going to have a little debate over the
we'll have the Ace Attorney Edgeworth.
We'll pull out my Nintendo DS.
Yeah. Will he have facts and logic supporting his case? Yes. Yeah. Will mine be a pure emotional case where I just start screaming that Jaren Jackson Jr. is worse than Robert Williams? Yes, but who do you believe? Your beloved co-host, who I know all of you love, or a guest? Remember, I can revoke Patreon things. Trill, I could dose Trill the next time we're near each other and get access to the Patreon and get rid of I could banish you to the ends of the earth. So you better support me. I'm trying to I'm going to win support the way all people do. Fear and coercion. The most proven way to win people to your side in debate.
Let's go. All right, so let's run through these last few Slop notes that we have here, which are the Timberwolves and Clippers express interest in Mike Conley, which sounds like to me Mike Conley for D'Lo would be this kind of swap where the Jazz are trying to get off the Conley contract a year early.
What's the sweetener?
I don't even think you need a sweetener. I think the sweetener is that the Jazz get off Mike Conley's contract a year early and that D'Lo's expiring.
Oh, I forget D'Lo's expiring.
Yeah, and they want to preserve this. So all the reporting coming out is that they're trying to trade D'Lo so that they can preserve the salary slot because they're paying Towns and Gobert so much, and then they're going to have to extend Edwards that they're not going to have. I know.
Poor Mike Conley, no.
Yeah.
This is like worse than Seth Curry getting sucked into the fucking Ben Simmons trade.
He's like, I have to go play with Gobert again?
Yeah, that is like a fate worse than death. Like, it's just damning to all-time league good guy Mike Conley. Yeah, I don't want that for him. Yeah.
Oh, jeez, that's tough.
That is rough, man.
Poor Mike certainly, I'm kind of been, and Dash and I have talked about this in the group DM a little bit, but like, I'm kind of to the point where I think D'Lo's becoming a little overrated or underrated, which is wild because I've never been a D'Lo guy. Like everyone who listens to the podcast knows that I've said for years I would not want that guy on my team, especially come playoff time. I just don't believe in his skill set. But like, I don't know, like he was a pretty good regular season player for them.
He was an all-star.
He made an all-star team, and like, and it might have been a little bit fluky, but like he's a really good passer. He's a smart player. He can shoot off the catch. He's a somewhat capable creator. He's a little overtasked on a lot of teams that he's played for, but like people act like I'm going to be honest. Like, I think if you just ask me straight up, would you rather have Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry, or D'Angelo Russell? I would just say D'Angelo Russell. Like, I think that like, compared to those other guys,
I think it would depend on the context. In the
those
playoffs,
guys are old and injured, and like
I guess,
and like they're not efficient scorers anymore, and like they can shoot, but like maybe the only thing is like they're gonna play better within a lot of team context, which is true. But like I think that they're just like I don't know, like I would take like if I could see the Heat making a Lowry for D'Lo swap, and then D'Lo has like, oh my God, like he has like a breakout with the fucking Heat, and then it's like he's figured it out. Like that, I could see that more with D'Lo than I could with like Conley or Lowry going to a team. Like, I don't really see why the Clippers would trade for Conley. Like I just don't. It doesn't make any sense to me.
The Heat move him into like the offsite bunker from like Resident Evil 4 and shoot him up with like the Las Plagas that like makes you buy into like team roll. Just getting like choked out by Pat Riley on the first day of practice. Like, hey, you are one of us, it seems.
the D'Lo hero Hooper backcourt just becomes like.
Well, in the trade you're considering, I'm thinking of the Jordan Clarkson D'Lo Hooper.
Oh my God.
And Colin Sexton.
The trio. Will Hardy's just like trying to combine all their strengths into one player.
It does feel like a psychic attack on Will Hardy at that point. Yeah, that seems like Danny just trying to get him to quit immediately.
Like, yeah, exactly.
What's it? Maybe you know this. There is like one D'Lo like stat that's like mind blowing. I'm trying to think if it's like catch and shoot above the break threes or something like that. Like he has like one of like one of those stats. It's like 50% or
that
something.
Feels
like that.
Right to me. Like I feel like in my mind, every single three I've ever seen D'Lo make is a catch and shoot above the break. Like that. Yeah, that feels right in my brain. And like also he's just
someone's gonna run the stats and it's like 23%.
He's actually the worst in the entire NBA. Yeah. But it feels like I'm doing the Bill thing.
Right, exactly.
It feels like this to me. I don't care what the numbers say. In my brain, he had 7 threes against the Sixers once, and that's all that. Ala Abdenabi does this all the time, where he'll talk about guys who kill the Sixers, and I'm like, that guy doesn't kill the Sixers at all. Like, like D'Lo has had like 2 good games against us, and he's a Sixers killer. But back to the Conley conversation, like,
that's interesting.
I guess at this point with Conley, because like if the Clippers were to do it, and by the way, I feel bad for John Wall. I don't want to do a victory lap on like, oh yeah, because I said before the season, I was like, I don't get this at all for them, but like they're already trying to move on from him. I feel really bad for him. I want him to succeed. Like it really sucks the way that his career has kind of fizzled out over the last few years. And I really was hoping that the Clippers situation would be a way to figure this stuff out. But he's kind of just not really been what they needed. And it sounds like they're going to try to move on from him for either this kind of upgrade or for and I don't even know if I would consider it an upgrade with the way that Conley's been playing this year. But like, I guess my whole thing is like, this kind of comes back to my issue with, we need a point guard, right? Like Conley is a nice connecting piece, veteran kind of point guard you can throw in there. Same with Lowry, where like, they don't really have a ton left in the tank. They're like 34, 36, whatever. And my thing is like what you would have to give up to get Conley in terms of salary matching, where it's like John Wall, Marcus Morris, or Luke Kennard or whatever. If I'm the Clippers, I'd rather just hang on to the wings and see if I could just find a point guard that can, like, I don't know, get like DeLon Wright. Like, I just don't really think that they need a point guard like that. Like, I think that, and I've said it time and time again, I think that their team was constructed with the idea of their two best players being healthy, and they never are. And because of that, it makes it seem like their offense is just a complete dysfunction when, like, if you had Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, like, would you really have that much of a need for a point guard? Like, probably not.
You know what they need? They need a hooper. Okay.
Yes.
Hear me out. They need a hooper who's out of his team's rotation, a point guard who's done it at all levels, who's shown that he's capable of scoring. They need Peyton Pritchard. The Clippers need Peyton Pritchard more than anyone has ever. More than a man in the desert needs water. More than a 25-year-old me needed a goth girlfriend. Like just something. They need everything. They need Peyton Pritchard in a way that no one has ever needed anything. And if they wanted to give us Terrence, if they wanted to give us Terrence Mann or Luke Kennard, it's fine. Like we'll help them out.
I was gonna say the one team that I would be petrified. I mean, I'm already like, I think the Celtics are going to win the title, but the Celtics getting Luke Kennard would be definitely my 13th reason, because that is the one team where I'm like, well, you can't play Luke Kennard because he can't play against the Celtics. Well, if the Celtics have Luke Kennard, he's like the best shooter. He's literally been like a top 5 shooter in the NBA this season.
Yeah, well, and like, especially with what's happened to like our white guy shooters, it can't happen a third time, right? Like Dino Gallinari tears his knee. Sam Hauser gets shot with the Monstar potion and gets dragged off to hell, and he's in the Silent Hill fog walking around. So that can't happen a third time. Something bad happening to someone. By the way, Peyton Pritchard is genuinely hooping. I'm like being sarcastic, but like he's been. He might be in our playoff rotation when it's all said and done. To be honest,
no, he won't be. You guys are too deep to have him in your rotation.
I watch this space. Big things coming. Fast people.
Watch this space. Luke Kennard is currently shooting 46% from 3 after he shot almost 45% on 6 attempts last year. And then the year before shot 44.6. So if there's a team, if they're willing to move on from Luke Kennard, I don't think they are. I think they really like Luke Kennard. But if they're willing to move on, that's a kind of shooter that could really make a difference on a team if you have the defensive infrastructure to kind of back him up and make him playable in the playoffs. And like, there's only like 1 or 2 teams I think that he can't play against because of what he can bring you on offense.
Yeah, exactly. Just to get back to Conley real quick. I think that I actually kind of like that move for like the Timberwolves, just like honestly completely outside of basketball, just because like you've got to like, you're stuck going forward now. You got to figure out a way out of this morass.
Sure. And
you need that money. Like you can't let that just expire. Like, so they absolutely, if they don't want to bring D'Lo back and re-sign him, and I don't think they should, I think doing something like this is of the utmost importance. It almost doesn't matter who you get back, like, to be totally honest.
Honestly, it sounds like, if anything, the Timberwolves should be trying to move on from D'Lo because he doesn't want to be there. Like, every quote that's come out from him is like, it doesn't sound like it. Like, he basically was like, yeah, if you can't figure out how to use my talents, that's not on me, that's on you. So, like, it sounds like he kind of wants out. So, like, maybe that's the kind of thing where, like, the thing that I always make fun of, which is like, we just need the veteran leadership locker room guy. Maybe the vibes really would shift because it goes from like D'Lo being like, fuck this, I don't want to be here, to like Mike Conley, who's never gonna be anything but a good dude and just come in and be like, yeah, fuck it, like I'll come in and do what you need me to do.
Yeah, the unstoppable force, immovable object of Mike Conley locker room guy versus Rudy Gobert locker room guy. Like, can it be defeated? It's like Jameer Nelson and Dwight Howard back in the day. Like who could overpower who there?
Do we know if Conley contracted COVID from Gobert? Because that could play.
Yeah,
into
I was
this
saying
year
that could absolutely play into it in the long run. I mean,
right.
yeah, that's interesting. I forgot that D'Lo was expiring. That's an interesting piece because I think D'Lo could be helpful in certain contexts.
Sure.
And like I said, I think that it behooves the Timberwolves to just trade him for like money that's not expiring. So
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
You just, if anything, you could
Right.
always just trade that as expiring salary in a year from now. Like that's kind of the way that they have to look at it.
Yeah.
Let's get in. All right. There are a few more things. John Collins, of course, always fucking something with John Collins. Until some real things happened there was only one trade that I thought was somewhat interesting. The framework that was thrown out by Mark Stein, which I didn't get at all for one team, which was John Collins to the Jazz, Malik Beasley to the Cavs, and then obviously other salary filler and stuff, and then Karis LeVert and stuff to the Hawks, which I didn't get. But Shams, but Shams report basically said it would look something like Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt to the Hawks.
Okay.
So I like that one a little bit more, but I'm also like, it's so funny to me that we're here all these months later and they're like, fuck, we need a movement shooter.
Yeah, right.
Let's get a smaller one who's horrible on defense.
Boy, it sure seems like we should have traded John Collins instead of fucking Kevin Huerter. Yeah.
John Collins, who we tried to trade for 5 years. It's, oh my God, it's just, I just thought that was really funny. And then,
it's a bummer.
And then the last thing on this, any takes from you on Jakob Poeltl interest from the Celtics?
I don't. Seems like this is what I said in my Celtics thread. I'll say it again here. Maybe cope. So feel free to make fun of me. Sounds like the Celtics and the Spurs kind of do business. Like you can kind of tell there are certain teams that like doing business with certain other teams. Sure. Like past Sixers regimes clearly did business with like the Kings a lot. Like there are teams that like do business with other teams. The Spurs and the Celtics, they did the Gallinari thing. They did the
Derek White.
They did Derek White. They do like, I think Brad Stevens like has a connection with like Pop and the guys who like work in that office. So like, I think that this might be them floating out a little bit of smoke because I don't see a reason why you would want to trade for Jakob Poeltl unless like Robert Williams is like completely cooked and like on borrowed time. And I just, from watching Rob, that does not seem to be the case at all. Like even remotely close. He looks awesome. So
yeah, that didn't really make any sense, especially because you guys just extended Horford. So like,
yeah,
the one thing is you'd have to pay Poeltl after the season. So like that also, you're not going to pay him. And he probably wants to start, and he's definitely not going to start on the Celtics unless you think of him as like the transitional, like, he's going to replace Al Horford in these next few years and Horford moves to the bench. But like, even then, like, I don't know. I'm just like, with the way that the Celtics have had their like versatility with having bigs who can shoot, like I'd probably look towards more that kind of archetype of player. Like Jakob Poeltl is very good, but like, I don't know, a drop big who can't shoot and doesn't really fit the style of play that you guys have been going for. Doesn't really make any sense to me.
He can shoot free throws, which is an important context,
No, he can. Isn't he like one of the worst in the NBA?
I thought he was. No, I thought.
Did he figure it out?
Opposite? No, I thought he was the total opposite. Maybe I'm totally off base here, but
no, he can't shoot free throws at all.
He can't shoot free throws at all.
58% from the line.
I'm totally off. Who am I thinking of?
Career 52% shooter. He shot like
really?
49% last year.
Okay.
The only reason I know this is because I was like, oh, the Spurs have two of the worst free throw shooters in the NBA with him and Sohan.
That's wow. I had no idea. Wow. Why was I so wrong on that? I feel like because I love Poeltl. I love.
He's good. He's good at a lot of things. He can't shoot for shit. That's the one thing.
That's crazy to me. Maybe I'm thinking of his college free throw.
Yeah.
Percentage. I don't know what that was. But anyway, maybe that was probably also like 40%. Just like a total whiff by me. But I don't know. I just don't see it just because like you said, the Celtics love having the shooting bigs, and then the only non-shooting big they have is Rob, who is just like a 99th percentile like freak, like at like a bunch of at everything but shooting. And I think he will eventually
and he can
add
shoot
shooting.
Free throws.
That's and he can and I think he will eventually be like add shoot. He has touch on like long twos. Like the form looks good. I don't know what the percentages are like, but like I'm telling you, Rob's going to be able to shoot at some point. Maybe not threes, but like at least like long twos. So I don't see it. On top of that, I also don't think the Celtics would trade anything that would top any other offers. Because again, he's one of the only good players that's out there. It's like him, Bojan, and the Raptors guys. Like, because the Rockets don't have anyone good to trade. Like, I don't like what the Magic are going to be trading like Terrence Ross.
No one gives a shit. Like, it's just like, I just think they'll probably end up getting a decent first for Poeltl, and like, I just don't think that Poeltl's worth that for what the Celtics need, unless, and like you said, unless it's an emergency situation where like maybe they're worried about Rob's health for the playoffs. But even then, I'd probably still just try to find a wing and go small more often. Like that would be my plan. But
like I even think like the Clippers are probably more likely to like outbid them on that, because even though Zubac is like great, he's like their only big. So like maybe them buying insurance like for that or something. Like I don't know. Like I don't really know. The Celtics thing just doesn't make sense to me though. Like I think the Celtics are straight chilling. Like I do not think they are going to be in on anything at this deadline besides maybe buyout guys. So
I tend to agree there.
So Zach and Bill, our beautiful boys.
Our beautiful boys are back. They did the Western Conference at the end of last week on Zach's podcast, and oh boy, as people were pointing out in the comments, and before we get into anything, look, I have admitted defeat. Jokic is maybe the best player in the NBA. At worst, I said third or fourth. Mm-hmm. Enough from these two about like, we get it. You literally the things that Bill said throughout here, it is like weird great white hope shit. It makes me feel uncomfortable.
So I'm just gonna complain a little bit real quick about this. Was on the most recent Lowe post. Zach just breezes over the Celtics saying, we've talked enough about the Celtics, which like, I get it. There's not much interesting to talk about in the Celtics, but you have not talked about them a lot. You had Scal on once, who's like one of the worst things. Every time anyone wants to talk about Tatum or the Celtics, you just keep it moving. Say they're good and just keep on moving. Meanwhile, I've got to listen to the billionth like Jokic or Warriors fucking tangent for like a million years. And like, look, I get it. It's boring. You know, those teams are more interesting, but like, don't say you've talked about, don't say that to me. And especially with the Jokic shit. Like, God, I love him too. He's a great player. He said he was going to fuck Bol in a press conference. That's incredible. I still don't want to hear about it. You saw that, by the way, right?
I did. Yeah.
That's incredible. Very good.
Hilarious.
That's good stuff, if you ask me.
But yeah, there were a few comments when he called Jokic his personal hero. I was like, all right, we get it. Also,
dick riding is crazy. Right now.
It is crazy over the top.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, oh my God, because it was, would you rather have Giannis or Luka for the next 10 years? And then he said at the end, I would have my personal hero, Nikola Jokic. Like, oh, shut up. Enough. We get it. And then the other thing on here was that just made me feel uncomfortable was when he said he referred to the other players on the Nuggets as Jokic's toys.
I did hear that. I also eyebrow raised at that.
I was like, what? These are human beings.
Yeah, I was like, that's a little weird. Like,
he called Aaron Gordon his like toy car or whatever.
Yeah, that was a little.
Yeah,
a little sus for Bill.
Little strange comment from him.
What do you? That gave me a little bit of the. What do you mean by that?
What do you? Yeah. Extremely weird. But yeah. Anyway, let's get into the conversation that they had, which was honestly, I thought this one was way better than the Eastern Conference one.
I agree. Yeah.
I also think that the West is kind of cut and dry this year for the All-Stars. Like. They had a few conversations, and we'll have some conversations as well about the stuff. But like the depth of talent in the West seems to be a little bit lacking outside of the guard spot, which is like super stacked. And it made the picks a little bit easier, especially when it came to like starters and who they picked. Before we get into anything though, just before they got into their picks, I made a few notes here. I love Bill. Bill was like, Jeremy Grant would really help the Cavs. And it's like, yeah, no shit. Dude.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like almost an all-star. Those players tend to help when you like put them on your team at your worst position.
Who are they trading for Jeremy? Like, they're going to get rid of one of their four without getting rid of one of their four best players. They're trading
Chetty Osmond.
Yeah,
the Blazers lust for Chetty Osmond, and
they will have Isaac Okoro and Lamar Stevens, or they will die.
Yeah. The accountant Dean Wade will go to the Trailblazers, and Zach will kill them with making that awful joke every time. Talks about the Blazers.
And so Bill's plan was trade Jeremy Grant, play Shaedon Sharpe, and then try to tank. Which he was like, Dame would be cool with that. And then I was like, they tanked last year when Dame was out, and I'm like, you just made a trade to get a guy who's having a career year shooting. Is, for all things considered, a fleece of a trade for the Blazers.
Yeah, incredible.
You just got a borderline all-star wing for a future Bucks pick.
How old is Jeremy Grant again?
27, 28? Like, he's not old.
That's insane. Like,
yeah,
you obviously want, like, this is the last contract you definitely want. Obviously, you want to resign him. I don't know. It's absurd.
Yeah,
anyway.
He's 28 years old. Like, squarely in the middle of his prime, having the best shooting season of his career, very good defender.
Didn't have a lot of minutes when he was coming up, too, because he was like a fringe rotation guy on like the Sixers.
Yeah. I thought that was incredible. Like, and he's like, "What are you going to pay Jeremy Grant $40 million?" I'm like, first off, I'm like, you pay him 30, 35, and which I think is like a reasonable contract for a wing in the middle of his prime. It's a little bit of an overpay, but it's also like he's a borderline all-star. And then on top of that, like your whole thing with Portland and has always been they want to compete with Dame, and like. You just got a home run as one of your first trades, and you want to turn around and just trade him before you have to, that made no sense to me.
Yeah, forwards, like look at what's going on with like OG Anunoby. Forwards of his caliber are insanely valuable. Like,
and he's a much better offensive player.
Yeah,
or at least in the.
He's
context.
Probably not as good of a defender, but he's still like a better. I would say a better overall player. And I don't know, borderline all-star. Enough said. Like, I got burned given like Jalen Brunson was like a more suspect guy. I got burned by the Jalen Brunson thing for thinking that was a slight overpay because it kind of, I guess maybe a little bit was in the moment, but like that's a great contract now. Like, the only time those like big contracts are like really risky are like there's two instances. There's like the guy has a huge injury risk. And like something like that happens, or like he had a massive outlier season, or you're paying Tobias Harris. Those are the two options where it can go wrong. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And even the Tobias contract at the moment, we were like, this is insane. like everyone was like, this is a massive overpay. And like, will you have to overpay a little bit to keep Jeremy Grant? Yeah, probably, because he hasn't really gotten like a major payday for a guy of his caliber. But at the same time, I don't know. I think it's kind of the perfect situation. And like, my whole thing is like they have options either way. Even if they overpay for him, he's going to have trade value still. And then on top of that, more importantly, they have options to like trade some of their young guys and get another star. So like, if Paul George became available this summer, or Jimmy Butler, or whoever, they have the ammo to go get those guys, even if they re-sign Jeremy Grant. So that made no sense at all. And as someone pointed out in the comments, like Bill was hyping up the Blazers like a month ago. Like, I mean, look, I think that we might have been a little bit off base with like maybe like I think at one point we were saying that they should have traded for Kevin Durant, which I still believe that they should.
I think they should. Everyone should trade for Kevin Durant.
Yes,
the Orlando Magic should trade for Kevin Durant. Like
when we talked about OG, I think we had said like, who knows, the West is wide open. Maybe if they get OG, then you have Grant and OG, Simons and Dame. If you do like a picks package plus Sharp or whatever, and then you can make a real run at the finals. Maybe that was a little bit off base, but like I still think that they're like better than their record. Like, I think that they're above 500 team, and like I don't know. I think they're in a good situation.
They're in the mix with like there's only like 3 teams in the West I'm sure are better than the Blazers, like positive, and that's the Pelicans, Grizzlies, and
there's 4. I think the Warriors are just always going to own the Blazers.
Dame can kind of go.
No.
I don't know.
They're always going to own them. It's just that's just how it is.
I mean, head to head, but I think it would be a similar thing. I think if you're writing off, I mean, yeah, Steph. I mean, obviously the upside is not as high. You know what I'm saying? But I just they could win. It would not. If you told me, if we flash forward 3 months and you told me the Blazers won a playoff series, I would not be shocked.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too.
Yeah. It's not likely, but that would not like blow me away. It's like, wow, they beat the Kings? No way. Word. Yeah. Like
they have a chance. They have a chance as long as Dame is somewhat Dame, and they still have to get into the playoffs, which might be the hardest part for them. But I definitely trust Dame a little bit more than some other guys in these big playoff series. So another thing on here, Zach Lowe backs down from the cowardice.
Yeah,
decides,
we got him, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, confirmed listener of the podcast, Zach Lowe. Yeah. We got his attention with the Christmas thing. I got a cease and desist order, but we did get him to listen to the pod. So delightful.
Wait, this is an insane stat. Steph has never lost a playoff game to Dame.
That is crazy.
A game, not a single game. That's crazy. 10-0. How is that possible?
Oh, was he out in certain games?
I think he might have been injured in a series. Jesus,
that's crazy.
Christ.
Yeah.
So 2 sweeps and then a 2-0 in another year. Jesus Christ, man, that is tough for the Blazers.
That's rough. That's brutal. Yeah.
I feel bad for Blazers fans, but so Zach said because you can't vote Tatum into the front court, he looked at the stats afterwards and he said he would go back and start Embiid over Giannis. Giannis would be the one coming off the bench, which is props to Zach.
Interesting. Yeah.
Props to Zach because I think most guys would just, like Bill, he said he was leaning 51-49 Giannis over Embiid, even though he's wrong. And it's like,
I'm surprised Tatum didn't get more of a look there. I think it's because both those guys are, they
made the argument that I made. Yeah, I was going to say they made the argument I made. Best player on the best team. I tend to think that guy should have one starter.
We're starting to see the Jason Tatum run. Like he had 50 in Charlotte. It's like clockwork. You can literally set your fucking watch to the Jason Tatum back half of the season absurdity.
I was gonna say you called it, and then literally 2 days later he had 50.
I'm telling you, there's it's a meme. It's been a meme on Celtics Reddit for 5 years.
It's oh my god, who is this? In a terrible way, and it's is he even good? And then January to April is this Michael Jordan with a jumper?
Yeah, this is the second coming of Christ. I'm witnessing the second coming of Christ. But yes, but props to Zach because I think Giannis, I went with Tatum. Maybe some might say to beat the Homer allegations, but Giannis, I think Giannis is the other pick. I think Embiid is clear. I think that shows ball knowledge to remove Embiid from the bench.
Yeah, props to Zach for that. And then so let's get into their starters, which one thing he did say that was funny to me was when he was talking because he started SGA at the one guard spot. And the one thing that he said in the midst of this that was funny to me, and it was just something that he said in passing, and I don't really think he thought about it, but he said athletically, defensively, the Thunder were on the same level as the Celtics, which I really like this Thunder team. And at some point I want to do an episode on the Thunder and how much fun they've been and that shit. And
Sam Presti has owned me. Presti has owned me.
I was going to bring that up.
Have to come to Jesus. Yeah, I'm going to have to come to Jesus. I really thought he was going to bench SGA, but I mean, if he's actually going to let SGA cook down the stretch, I will retract most of. He will go to minimum security. He will have probation. I will give him conjugal visits. His incarceration, will be short term. I will not. I will lease out his Gitmo cell that I was freeing everyone in Gitmo except for Sam Presti. Now it will be empty. So
this is progress, folks. This is growing, learning.
If Shea does not miss the last 2 months of the season with a phantom
Yeah, I think we're past that point. I think that I'm to the point where
I do not. I will believe it when I see it. I know Sam Presti is looking at the Wemby stuff and it's just like waiting with an
they're
X-ray.
too good now. Like they have a better record than like the Suns, and like they're like they really have basically the same record as the Lakers right now. I'm pretty sure. Like,
yeah.
Hold on. Let's look at the Western Conference real quick. They're half a game behind the Trailblazers.
Okay, let's go.
They are better than the Lakers, better than the Suns. They are half a game behind the Timberwolves. They are a game behind, or half a game behind the Jazz. Like they're going to end up winning 30 to 35 games. Even if they benched all their starters, they're already at 21. Like there's no way that they could get into that bottom four. Like that, even if they lost every game.
They're a game and a half back of sixth.
Yeah.
The Clippers. Yeah. That is crazy.
I don't think they're going to make any moves at this deadline, but I definitely think that they have the upside to be like an annoying play-in team that no one wants to face in the play-in.
If they could sneak into the playoffs somehow, I think that'd be really great for them. That would really help me feel a lot better. I would be pretty high on the Thunder going into next year, and Sam Presti will have completed his own inch of me, defeating me in combat. Yeah,
I'm kind of to the point where like they did a whole thing where they were praising Presti on here for getting SGA and all the picks and the Westbrook trade and all that shit. And I'm kind of to the point with the Thunder where like even guys that I wasn't crazy, like I said it on here like probably 2 weeks ago, like Josh Giddey's really good. And I thought he was overrated just because he was being put over like Franz and like whatever, like in these rankings. And like there was the LaMelo versus Giddey combo they had and stuff. But like Giddey has, if the shooting is real with Giddey, he's a very well-rounded player. He's got great feel, really good ball mover, great passer. He can actually, like, he's good in floater range. Like, he's more of a complete player than I gave him credit for. And a lot of people were freaking out after the Sixers lost to them. And I was like, I just think the Thunder are good. Like I hate to be doing the Kobe thing, but you said it and I didn't believe you.
Yeah.
And I was like, and you said it with the Magic. And I was like, okay. Like, I like the Magic, but like, whatever. But like, the Thunder are now, they've been like number one offensive rating since the new year, the last 3 weeks. Like
they won 50 burgered the Celtics, who are like have been like a pretty good defense, like since Rob came back. So, I mean, Rob didn't play in that game also, but you know, they're good. Like, good Jalen Williams. Hooper, he's really good. Like,
by the way, I don't know if you caught this, but after the Trey Mann thing, when I drafted him in the worst rotation player draft, which prospect I love coming out of the draft, he was a guy that I was high on in that draft because of his ability to create separation and just create his own shot. He had like 12 points in the first half against the Sixers and didn't miss a shot. And I was like, this is karma for me selecting him in the bad rotation player draft.
Here to get owned,
They're just, all of their young guys are hitting. My guy Isaiah Joe's been great for them off the bench. I really buy the Thunder as like a scrappy play-in team that no one wants to face. Maybe they take a game or two off a team in the playoffs, kind of similar to the, you know, those Clippers teams from a few years ago, but when SGA was on them, but just with much more young talent. So I'm not like I think that. Do you think he should start the All-Star game, SGA?
Yes.
Okay, so you have him with your starters.
No question in my mind. I have a locked 1-2 at guard spot.
I debated in my head between him and Ja. I'm higher on Ja than you are, but I also am like, the Grizzlies are really good.
Yeah.
That's a team thing. That's a coach part of it. Ja is very obviously their best player, but JJJ has been really good when he has been healthy and actually been able to stay on the court. I think I'm going to give the edge to SGA just because I think that from a two-way perspective, I think that he's probably more effective than Ja. I think it's really close, though, because Ja is a much better playmaker, even though SGA is a pretty decent playmaker.
Yeah.
I buy SGA more as a 3-level scorer and defender, but I like Ja's playmaking more. So if you had to, it's still very close for me. But based on the production so far, I think I'm going to go SGA in my starting backcourt with Luka.
Yeah. Oh shit, Luka's a guard.
Yeah, that they talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
They were like, "Fuck, he is a guard, so we can't."
Okay, never mind. I am thinking about this more because I was debating Steph Curry versus Morant.
But Steph just hasn't played the games compared to these other guys.
But he's going to be we talked about this in our last pod.
Yeah.
Like he's going to sorry. He'll have the games played by the time the All-Star game rolls around.
Okay, let's see. How many minutes has Steph played so far this year? Okay, he's played 1,000 minutes. So
yeah.
Same thing with Embiid. Where like, okay, I have to rescind it then. I have to go Steph.
Yeah.
I have to go Steph over SGA. Because on a per-minute basis, Steph has still been one of the best players in the NBA this year.
So that was I'm just a huge SGA believer, and I think that I did kind of dock Steph a little bit for the minutes played. SGA was the one who made it while I forgot about Luka. SGA was the one being a guard, so the SGA was the one that cleared for me, and I was debating Steph versus Ja. But that was my starting backcourt was Steph and SGA. I would probably go Luka and SGA, but I see Steph is
you can't put SGA, and I love SGA, but he's not on the same planet.
I mean, he's not on the same level, but he's had a better season.
I don't think so. I still think Steph was like the MVP of the league. We were debating him and Tatum after like 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then he missed like 3 weeks, and he hasn't been great since he came back. To be totally honest, like
29, 6 and 6, 49% from the field, 42% from three. And also, my thing about Steph is like Steph's impact can never be quantified in raw stats.
Well, okay, but also like they didn't like crater like when Steph left. They were actually fine. They actually were like exactly the same team when Steph was out. So I do not think the same could be said of SGA. Let's ignore the fact that he was out when the Celtics.
I do think that he's very important to what they do, and
I don't know. I am extremely SGA pilled, which is where the Sam Presti go to prison thing is. So I will admit that this is a little bit of a romantic call on my part, just because part of the reason I react so strongly to Sam Presti when I thought he was going to nuke this season is just I'm a huge believer in SGA. I think he could be like a real, like better than Ja Morant star in this league for like a long.
He's going to be an MVP candidate probably. I mean, he's still only 24, 25. Like he is having a mid-career breakout. This was a natural trajectory for him, but for a guy that is like now going to be making all NBA almost every year, probably to be breaking out 24, 25, like he'll be in the MVP conversation once their team is better. Yeah. Steph still though, a 12-point net rating swing. When he's on the court, the Warriors are a plus 5.9. When he's on the bench, they're a -6. Like, I might be a legacy bias thing here, but like Steph was the best player in the finals last year. And if we're going like between now and the thing, like you brought up, I'm going to give the edge to Steph, and I'm going to put him there. They both put SGA. They both had Luka and SGA as their starting backcourt. The forwards was where it was more interesting for them because this is where the depth of forwards, and this is not to knock anyone in the West that's starting because they do have really good start. They're going to have really good starting forwards, but like the depth of forwards in the West is just dog shit. Like the guys we're talking about here for these starting spots are like, LeBron, who's still LeBron, but like he's not the LeBron that we all know. Like he's not I wouldn't even say he's like a top 5 player anymore.
Kryptonited LeBron, and Domantas Sabonis, who literally has a broken thumb.
Oh, he broke his thumb
or dislocated it. His thumb is fucked up. Like, and he's like playing through it. Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's been that way for like 3 weeks or something. Like crazy. Like I'm trying to remember what the exact injury was. Let me find it. But
the Sabonis stats kind of blew my mind when I looked
at them. It is crazy. It is crazy.
I know Bill has to say it with everything that he says.
Yeah.
It was funny because Bill didn't want to start Sabonis because he does the thing where he wants to build a team that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, Jokic and Sabonis would just never play together. But that was like, it's the All-Star game. Like they deserve those spots. And I was like, okay. But Bill was like, yeah, oh, fuck it. I'll put Sabonis in. And I'm like, Bill was itching to put in another white guy. And that's
like
starting
you needed any prodding. Like you sicko, you absolute pervert. He wanted to put Sabonis on the Celtics. What a freak. I want to trade Marcus Smart for Sabonis. Go to jail. Go to jail, Bill Simmons.
Sabonis has been...
He is unarguably a better player, but I'm still the Celtics with the finals. But yeah.
Yeah. Maybe for what the Celtics need, Sabonis doesn't quite make... But leads the league in rebounding right now. 12 rebounds a game.
What was his assist numbers are like fucking insane.
7.1 assists per game.
Like what? That is genuine. Like if Jokic like didn't exist, like we would be going insane about that.
He's been like a top 15 player in the NBA this season, which is crazy to say because I've always been lower on Sabonis because of the things that we've talked about in the past. But the numbers are insane right now. He's averaging 19 points per game on 62% from the field. Like he has absolutely deserved this. And even though I was still like Halliburton over Sabonis, I'm for the long term. Sabonis is still pretty young, and like he's having his best season so far. They've really optimized him, and he's really the reason why they've been so good this year. So,
by the way, the injury is an avulsion fracture. And that's the thing is he's not getting surgery. He's just playing through it.
King.
So. Yeah,
literally Sacramento King.
Yeah, literal Sacramento King, Domantas Sabonis. But so Sabonis and Jokic were just in for me.
Yeah, those are locks for me in the starting lineup. Yeah. And so for me, Luka and Steph were also locks. Now that I've realized how much Steph has actually played. The last starting.
You're probably right. By the way, I want to be clear here. Your thing is probably right having Steph and Luka in, but I'm not bad.
I'm dying in the SGA hole.
I'm dying in the SGA hole. Yeah, I am SGA hole pilled. I am an SGA hole.
They should start calling themselves that. SGA hole.
There are dozens of us. Dozens. Yeah.
Dozens of SGA holes.
The SGA holes. We're gonna menace Sam Presti everywhere. Or the second he tries to bring an X-ray machine anywhere near our beautiful SGA.
Sam's going to be bringing up the trade value podcast.
I'm not going to let him go to a doctor. I'm just going to take him. I'm going to make him. Was the Christian Scientists the ones that don't go to the doctor? I'm going to spread that gospel because you can't trust them. I'm going to make him like I'm going to show him all the things of the anti-vaxxers shaking. I'm just like, look at this. Look at what they've done. The doctors, you can't trust them. Don't go to any of them.
Oh my God.
But anyway, but anyway, Luka. I think Luka is clear cut. Those three are locks. Probably Steph too, depending on how you feel about the games missed and where he's going to be. So that leaves LeBron.
It's Zion? Like LeBron, Zion, Lauri Markkanen, and Jaren Jackson Jr. are the last spots that you could debate here.
So those three guys.
I know you hate Jaren Jackson Jr., but we're gonna power through this because I actually think if he were to have played more games and minutes, I think that there is an argument for Jaren Jackson Jr. over Sabonis. If you go defensive impact plus offensive ability in the same way, it's almost like the reverse case where like Sabonis is having this crazy offensive season, Jaren Jackson Jr. is having this crazy defensive season, but Sabonis gets the edge because he's just played way more. And I do think it's a debate at the 4 spot between those two.
I think you could make that case, dropping kayfabe for a second. I think you could make that case a little more convincingly if the minutes thing was just the injury, you know what I'm saying? And not like the foul thing also being like a part of it. I think that's like what sets it apart. Because like his block rate is insane. Like what Zach said on today's pod that like his block rate is like 11% when he's on the floor. That is
it's the highest in NBA history. Yeah.
Well, without like Bill Russell and some of these other like.
No, I think it's literally higher than.
No, they didn't track it back.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, Yeah, I don't know. Bill Russell. People swear that Bill Russell's like block stats would have been like absurd. Like he would have like averaged a triple double with blocks. But anyway, yeah. I mean, you like dropping kayfabe. I think you could probably make that case. I ended up settling on LeBron just because.
To put it in perspective, though, Sabonis has played 700 more minutes this season than Jaren Jackson Jr. Even all things considered, and LeBron is I think LeBron's the logical choice there. Lauri Markkanen's the only other one that you could really make an argument for.
Yeah. I think didn't they both put Lauri in?
No, they actually ended up going with LeBron, and they basically said what we just did over the SGA Steph thing, where they're like, you can't leave LeBron. Like, can you leave LeBron? Like when LeBron's still performing near this level at his age, can you leave LeBron off the starters? And Lauri's been incredible, but basically the thing that they talked about was like the legacy thing just has to when it's the All-Star game, it has to take at least a little bit of like there's like got to be an ounce of that into factor. And then also the fact that like as amazing as Lauri's been, LeBron is still a great scorer, and the playmaking is just another level than Lauri. Yeah. Like Lauri isn't a playmaker at all.
Yeah, this is also kind of a moot point too, just because like LeBron will definitely be in the starting lineup with the player votes and everything. I mean, well, and that's another thing. I think that would be the other counterpoint to the Jaren Jackson versus Sabonis thing is nobody's going to the All-Star, putting guys in the All-Star game because of defense. Like,
never.
Like, yeah. So like Sabonis, I think is the clearer one. So I think we have besides SGA for Steph, I think we have an identical starting lineup because that is where I settled to. Yeah.
And if you go down the rest of this, you basically talk about, the different guys that are, wings and guards and shit like that. It's incredibly deep at the guard position. They talked about it on the podcast. One of my favorite parts was when they were talking about, I think they were talking about Sabonis or Lauri. It might've been Lauri. And Bill goes, I don't understand true shooting, but it's over 60 and that's great.
I love Bill.
He just keeps talking about how he doesn't understand true shooting, which is like, he could easily just Google it.
Yeah, it's like not that hard of an advanced stat. Like it's really
one of the easier ones. Like it doesn't even involve like any complicated formula or anything.
There's no like player tracking or anything like that. Like it's basically literally just weighted.
It's just weighted 3-point shooting, basically,
and free throws.
And free throws.
Yeah.
That's why Harden's always really good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really is just goofy. But yeah, I mean, I think that clears up the guards. What we think about the guards on the second string, then, right?
Yeah. So the second string guards are really hard because it's like, all right, the starters were SGA, Curry, and Luka. Those three. I had Curry and Luka as mine. You had SGA, and
I'm an SGA hole.
SGA hole and Luka for yours.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, your bench has to have
one of those, whichever of those two guys we didn't have, right?
So one of those two plus Ja.
And that's where I would go with that. Like that would
Booker?
Be the. Well, and then we get into the reserves because that's like, you have the second string, I would say, and then you kind of have the reserves. So then you're left with guys like Booker, Dame. Who was the other one? Because I was kind of surprised by how strongly they made the case for Dame, and admittedly I don't watch a lot of Blazers games, but I was kind of surprised how good Dame's numbers were when I looked at them, because I had kind of like I had like relegated him to like not even being on the list. And Booker, that's another one. That's like a weird one. What do you do with Devin Booker? Because he's been out for a while, and unlike Steph, his team has like literally died without him. Like just would get relegated in like they would have Booker back out there if this was like EPL, because they would be in danger of like being relegated. So
the Booker thing is interesting to me because they're 18-11 when he plays, and their record when he doesn't play is like 3-12 now, or 3-13. Like he's been incredibly important for that team, to the point where like it's just very obvious that he was the glue holding everything together. I also just think that, like Bill talked about it on the pod, like he's the best two guard in the NBA. Like how can you not have him on there as like a real two guard, like if like just straight up two guard, not someone who is a point guard, like he's very clearly the best right now. And if that is the case, I think that you kind of need to have him on there. It is tough because he's obviously injured. The Dame thing is funny to me. Dame is going to have a really weird career when we look back on like the accomplishments and the achievements, because Dame's only made 6 All-Star teams, which doesn't seem right. Like he feels like more like an 8-time All-Star, but in the middle of his prime, he was in that stacked Western Conference. He didn't make it in 2015 to 2017. And then he made it early in his career. He made one that was like maybe a little too early. Like he wasn't like quite ready yet to be like a surefire All-Star. But like if he misses again this year, he's going to have not made it since the 2021 season. Like it's possible Dame retires with 6 All-Star teams to his name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't think that because
it's the Booker games played thing for me, because I don't think he's had as good of a season as Booker and Ja. Like, you know, again, dropping kayfabe, because if I were in kayfabe, I'd say, no, you got to put Booker in over Bryant. So, you know, like I think I'm gonna spoil it. I had Dame off, and I was kind of surprised by Zach and them kind of having him on there, because
Bill didn't. Bill argued for Fox over Dame.
I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah,
I don't.
It's just so stacked. I don't really think that there is. And look, I've never been a De'Aaron Fox believer, but like, proof is in the pudding this year. He's been one of the best guards in the West. Like, he's probably not going to make it because Sabonis will be the representative for the Kings, and the Kings aren't going to get 2 All-Stars. But like, it does feel as though this is going to be a season we look back and be like, shit, Dame and Fox didn't make the All-Star team. like with these insane numbers, but like who, like we're now talking about 5 guards, like just Luka, SGA, Steph, Ja, and Booker are the 5 guards that are going to make it. 5 guards on a 12-team roster. So like, or 12-player roster. So like, that is where it's not even Dame or Fox's fault necessarily. It's just there's way too much talent, in the same way that we struggled with the Eastern Conference, where it was just like, fuck, there's so many guys to choose from. Yeah. And the constricting thing about the Western Conference is that there aren't nearly enough forwards that deserve to make it compared to the guards. Like,
I think Zion and Lowry are like I think 2 guys who deserve it. So like they're next in, and then you get down to, and then it starts getting a little weird, because then you get guys like Anthony Davis, who
only played 20 something games, like
and
was really good for a stretch,
but was an MVP for like, you know, an eighth of the season. So, you know, what do you do with that?
It was 8 games. Bill said it was what, 8 games?
8 games? Yeah. I love that for Bill. Let's go, Bill. I love shitty Bill when Bill's being a shithead.
He's like, hey, come on.
Yeah.
It was 8 games.
Especially
when he agrees with me.
When he agrees with me, and because I love slandering AD and the Lakers, so I love that. But like, that was how bad the front court stuff was. I was like, boy, do I really want to leave AD off? Like,
yeah. Well, AD's played 25 games, and Booker's played 29. So, and it sounds like AD could be back soon. So, like, it really depends on who comes back between those two, where it's like, if Booker doesn't play another game, like, he's played less than 30 games, and you're leaving off guards who are, like, very deserving this year.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Even though Booker's very clearly better than those guys, I think. Like, I think that he's just better than Dame and Fox. But, like, I struggle with this, because I think that Anthony Davis could easily play over 30 games, and then we're leaving Anthony Davis off. Like, it's harder in the West than I anticipated, just due to, like, the talent is much less, I think, from like picking standpoint. Yeah. But but overall the games played thing is just such a wrench in all of this.
Right. So they talked about Aaron Gordon too.
One of Jokic's toys.
Yeah, one of Jokic's toys. Can I admit something? I actually, before that pod, I looked at Aaron Gordon and I was like, I'm being absurd. like
he's been really, really good.
But I was like, I can't do this. Like,
Yeah.
I thought you would like shoot me on the pod, but I did look at him. Like,
He's shooting like 60% for the field.
That's what I saw. Like, I saw all the stuff and I was like, damn, and he's a good defender. Like,
yeah.
Like I kind
he's a little bit overrated defensively, to be honest.
But also, like,
with the offense.
Nuggets are going to be. We both agree the Nuggets are going to be the best team in the West. Like, if we're really struggling to put another front court guy on, giving the Nuggets 2 All-Stars, like, that's not the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, and a guy who's had a good season. So, I don't know.
He should be considered. I don't think that he should make it though.
Yeah, that's where I landed.
Yeah. Zion also played exactly 29 games, the exact same amount as Booker, and probably won't be back before the All-Star break, or at least it will be close. So, like, if maybe I'm doing the thing where I'm caring too much about, like, how good will this player be moving forward? How good has this player been historically? Yeah. But I think that Zion very clearly is going to be a top 10 player when he's healthy. Like, he's going to be, or at least a top 10 player talent. Because also, it's hard to say who's a top 10 player. Because, like, they said SGA was a top 10 player, and I'm like, is he? Like, if you really list it out, like, it's close.
Well, and if we're also talking about, like, team context too, like, if you don't pick Zion, the Pelicans aren't going to have an All-Star.
That was the big thing they talked about on the podcast, which is true. Like, the Pelicans could end up being close to the 1 seed, and they need to have a representative. And, like, Ingram's been out way too much, and CJ just is not that level this year. So I think, and also going up against an insane, CJ is just probably going to be one of the best players to never make an All-Star team. That's just kind of how his career is going to go, unfortunately. Yeah. And then I do just want to say, Bill arguing De'Aaron Fox over Dame 2 months after he tried to trade him for the Lakers picks.
Very funny.
Big move. Which would have been, like, totally illogical and against everything that the Kings have done as far as team building. Yeah. And he was like, I really want those Lakers picks. Just king move.
I will admit, I didn't totally disagree with Bill when he proposed that. I just
did.
Thought,
I'm not even a De'Aaron Fox guy, and I disagreed with that. I was like,
you
just traded Halliburton 6 months ago for a win-now move.
I forgot the timing of that. Yeah. If you had Halliburton, never mind.
That would be such a disaster.
I thought this was, like, back at the beginning of the year when they still had Halliburton, and I was like, yeah, I know that.
Then that would make sense. Then I'm like, okay, like, but that was
okay. Yeah. No. We're in agreement again.
Yeah. Okay, so my bench is going to end up being Ja, SGA, Lauri Markkanen, Devin Booker, Zion. So that's Ja, SGA, Lauri Markkanen, Booker, Zion. So there's 2 spots left for me. Yep. So who do we pick from here? Because do we pick Anthony Davis?
Yeah, I was going to say, you have Anthony Davis, Dame,
Fox, and then you get into the other forwards. And maybe I'll cheat a little bit and go heavy on the guard again, because now I'm looking at this like Anthony Edwards has not been quite all-star level as they talked about on the podcast. He's been very good, but I don't think he's like all-star level.
So I'm looking at the numbers. I was going to pick Fox and blow your mind. That was going to be my big joke about why I left Dame off, but I think I'm going to pick Dame. Yeah.
And maybe this is unfair to Fox because I'm going with the legacy bias thing, but it feels crazy in my mind that Damian Lillard only made 6 all-star teams. And like, he's been playing just as well as he was 2 years ago when he made the All-Star team.
I also think De'Aaron Fox, I think this is more likely to be like if he did make the All-Star game, it would be more likely to be a
outlier.
Oh, like a D'Angelo Russell type situation. You know what I'm saying? Like where it's like this was the good season he had, like so I don't know. He also just doesn't, I don't know. De'Aaron, it's hard for me to separate with the De'Aaron Fox thing that I just know he's not going to be like a good player in the play. You know what I'm saying? Like
Dame's been a playoff killer. Like that's what I'm saying. That's like, part of it. Yeah,
it's hard for me to separate that aspect. I mean, maybe De'Aaron Fox will prove me wrong and he'll just kill it in the playoffs, but I just don't think a player like him. I don't think he's going to find success in the playoffs. I think the Kings are going to
guards who have shaky shots always struggle in the playoffs. And if he's a real shooter, then this could age poorly. I could be like an average shooter, then whatever. I
want De'Aaron Fox to do well. So I would love to be owned here. Please own me, sure. De'Aaron Fox. But I just it's hard for me to think that is hard for me to get there.
Yeah. All right, so I think I'm gonna also go with Dame at the end here. We're just gonna go guard heavy off the bench.
Yeah.
Then I have one spot left, I believe. I think I have right because I had Ja, SGA, Laurie, Zion, Anthony Davis, Damian Lillard, Booker. Oh no, I'm full. So I might.
If you want to take Anthony Davis off, I was looking at Anthony Davis versus Aaron Gordon at the end, which was something I was looking at. So
okay, so I'm going to pivot.
I don't remember who Bill and Zach put here because I don't think they picked either of them. Or did they put Anthony Davis on there?
I believe I don't think they picked either.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who they picked.
Shit, I had it written down. Great podcast.
I was gonna say I listened to this. I listened to this like 3 days ago, so that's on me. That's on Citizens before the long weekend.
It's fine. Yeah. We fucked up. We forgot who we forgot who they had at the end.
We were doing a no growth. We were doing a. But anyway, you pick yours, and I'll try to find it while you're announcing your.
I'm debating on whether I should drop Anthony Davis or Damian Lillard for Jaren Jackson Jr. and ruin your day. But I just think Jaren Jackson Jr. shit.
That's probably right. You probably should drop Anthony Davis for Jaren Jackson Jr. That's probably what I will do.
I was gonna say by the time the All-Star game comes around, Jaren Jackson Jr. is gonna have played a lot more. His defensive impact has been crazy. Yeah. Offensively, I still don't fully trust him, and I'm not crazy about a 4 who really should be able to play the 5 but can't rebound. Like that. That's the one flaw in his game and obviously the fouling, but he's been better with the fouling this year. I'm going to go ahead and say Jaren Jackson Jr. for the last spot. I think the Grizzlies deserve to have 2 All-Stars based on their record so far this year. And it's not like the gap between Ja and Jaren Jackson Jr. is like the gap between Jokic and Aaron Gordon. So
right.
That's kind of why I'm considering. That's why I chose him for the last spot. Also, the Lakers don't deserve 2 All-Stars, dude. The Lakers suck.
Yeah,
and
exactly,
even if Anthony Davis was healthy, they weren't good.
Right. Exactly.
That's where I'm landing on it. Okay, so my final team is Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Sabonis, Jokic, SGA, Ja, Laurie, Zion, Devin Booker, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Damian Lillard.
I think we have an identical overall team because I've agreed with everything as we've parsed this out.
Yeah. I think that's where I land on that. And then before we get out of here, we do just need to hit on a few things here, which is okay. So first off, Bill saying Paul George for Maxey, Tobias, and stuff. Did you catch that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is an idea that I had probably had 6 months to a year ago.
It sounded familiar to me.
Yeah. I've said this kind of stuff before. I just don't think the Clippers are going to do this kind of trade. I think if the Clippers trade Paul George, it's either going to be for a haul of draft picks or a prospect that's. And I love Maxey. It's going to be they're going to try to get a prospect who's better than Maxey. And maybe they won't be able to. Maybe that's just the best guy that they can get because of where Paul George is in his career, his contract, all that shit, his health. And maybe that's a realistic trade. I don't know. The Sixers don't have a ton of draft capital, which could complicate things. But that was interesting to me. That's the kind of trade that won't happen until after the season. But my thing is I'm done with the Clippers. I just don't think that I totally agreed with what Bill said on here. You can't win a title if your best players are never available. And they're playing the Sixers tonight, and I'm sure they'll both be healthy and they'll beat us. But because I'm saying this right now. But oh god, the Raptors just lost to the Bucks without Giannis.
Ooh, that hurts.
God damn it, Raptors. We needed the fucking Bucks to lose. Disgusting. But yeah, so thought that was an interesting thing thrown out there by Bill. I'm sure Clippers fans hated it. because they traded SGA and all those picks for Paul George. To turn around and then get Maxey would be really tough as the return, even though I love Maxey. And then the Kings is the sneaky trade deadline team for them.
I kind of like that, to be honest. I thought that was kind of interesting.
What did you think of the Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes for OG trade, though? I didn't like that.
I thought that was absurd. I don't think the Raptors, any chance the Raptors do that.
I don't think there's any chance the Kings do that. The Kings just drafted him with the 4th pick, Keegan, and they like Harrison Barnes. They have no wing depth if they do that trade, too. They just have OG.
Well, we're in agreement that it shouldn't be done.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any chance Masai would want that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess Keegan like gives them shooting, but it's just like trading your problem for like a cheaper problem. And I'm like not sure Keegan Murray's ever going to be as good as OG Anunoby. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like Keegan though. I actually have come around on him a bit. He's a very good shooter, and at his size, I would value him. I wouldn't trade him unless I'm getting back like a
He's
star.
Also like 23 though, right? Or
he's 22. Yeah, I mean he's older for a first year. Like, yeah.
He'll definitely improve, but I just, I don't think we're gonna see like the Jason Tatum leaps or anything. No. From him, like so. I don't know. I mean, I guess OG's not. I don't know. I think both those guys should stay put where they are.
Agreed.
OG on that disgusting Raptors team. They need to bring Serge back, so they can yell at each other about fashion. The good thing.
The best thing that ever came from the Raptors.
Yes, like unironically, that's a delightful clip. I would love to see more.
We love it.
Yeah.
Fred VanVleet had 39, 6, and 9 tonight, and they lost.
Oh God!
How did they? No Middleton or Giannis, and they lost.
Who scored for the Bucks?
Drew had 37.
Okay.
Grayson Allen had 24.
Let's go.
Brooke had 19. Man, that is tough.
Oof.
Absolutely tough. And then the absolute last thing I just want to say here, the biggest shocker of this entire podcast to me was that Zach didn't know who Mike Birbiglia was.
That was awesome. He seems like he would love.
He is Mike Birbiglia, dude. Yeah. They're both like the same, like neurotic, like.
It is kind of crazy to me because that seems like Birbiglia is like also like kind of wholesome. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but that's why I love his specials. Yeah,
like he would like. It seems like that's like who Zach would know for stand-up comedians. Like I would believe. I would believe him if he said he didn't know who John Mulaney was, but like Pete Holmes and Mike Birbiglia are like the two guys I would be sure Zach Lowe would know.
They are the Zach Lowe of comedians.
Yes. Yeah, that is so fun. That is so funny that like he did too. Bill with the hot wreck too is also like it's very funny to me that Birbiglia like speaks to like Bill. I'm always so fascinated by what speaks to Bill and like what doesn't. Like I can't get off of like the psychology of Bill, like just completely 30-minute pushing his football podcast. Like one of his like flagship pods is like Guess Aligns with Sal. And he just at the A block of that podcast, just because the fucking Disney CEO changed in the news. He talked about that for 30 fucking minutes when everyone was tuning in for NFL news. He's amazing. His brain. I feel like it comes across that we like hate Bill sometimes. That could not be further from the truth. I adore Bill. He's beloved.
It's
like
funny. One of my favorite Bill, like, because Bill watches a lot of movies and stand-up specials and all this. Yeah. He just consumes a lot of media.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones was when he was talking about Bo Burnham's Inside, and he's like, and he was like, it was really weird and out there. I don't know. And he's like, but it was really creative and unique. I've never seen anything like it. And I was like, I love that Bill is like 50 something and could not relate to Bo Burnham's stand-up special in any way, even remotely, because he's the kind of guy that is being made fun of in Bo's stuff. And he was like, I respect it.
Maybe it's because I just listen to the entertainment pods. Like I just don't anymore. But like back in the Grantland days and even early on in the Ringer, I gave him a little more of a shot before I got like really annoyed with like that stuff. But Bill, it was always so funny to me how clearly Bill was just like talking to the younger staffers and just like giving everything they liked like a shot.
Yeah,
like,
picking their brains on.
Yeah, like he's clearly just talking to like Rembert and Haley about like, okay, what did you guys watch this weekend? like, and then like trying it out and like kind of like like saying his own thoughts, but also like half regurgitating it. By the way, Bill is right about that. Bo Burnham is a criminal. He will be arrested. He will be arrested, and he will leave. Anyone that he's dating will probably be heartbroken and will need someone else in media to cry on the shoulder.
Yes. Well, look,
I'm willing to be that person. I don't know who that would be. I don't know who Bo Burnham is dating, who that would be crying on my shoulder, but that's just how broadly speaking I am.
Any musicians,
like anybody, any like singer-songwriters who are like maybe like the voice of this generation or anything. I don't know, like maybe coming off of
Polly,
who also like might be on a trajectory where like they were like engaged to like a very handsome actor and now they've gone to like a relatively attractive stand-up comedian and they can continue that downward trajectory to like a disgusting podcaster, a nasty little man who has to hold his phone for the entire 2.5-hour podcast and shake it around while he leans over to turn on his light. This horrid little room.
So anyway,
anyone like that,
Phoebe, if you're listening,
who's that? I'm not sure. Who? I have no idea. I had no agenda there whatsoever.
So let's get out of here. But
very end of the podcast riff.
All I can think about is now that you said that thing about Bill with the young thing. Yeah. Bill being like, "Have you checked out this new Playboi Carti album?"
Did he say that? Is that real?
No.
Oh my god.
No, I wish. He was like, "Oh my god, have you heard this one song, Lean for Real?" He's talking about popping Xanax.
Oh wait, I love this riff. I love this riff about Bill talking about like if Lil Pump is overrated, underrated, or properly rated. Oh holy shit. Chief Keef, he just burned too brightly. He just walked away on top. The O Block really spoke to him.
People don't give Waka Flocka Flames enough credit.
If you work for the Ringer, we need to befriend Waz. We need to bury the hatchet.
Someone who's cool.
I need to get him. I feel like Waz is the guy we need on the inside for this one. Because I feel like if like Kevin O'Connor says it to him, Bill will not. Bill like won't do it. But we need someone with like cachet with Bill who like Bill clearly.
We need to MK Ultra. We need to MK Ultra Bill and just.
Yeah. Chris Ryan's a Philly guy. We could probably.
Oh yeah, Chris,
yeah. Let's get Chris in.
We have
Get Chris in there. Yeah, let's get Chris in there doing that.
All right,
that's altering Bill into reviewing drill albums.
This might be the most psychotic riff we've ever had this late into a podcast.
It's killing me. It's killing me.
I need to hear it now.
Yeah.
It's literally he could have a podcast called Drill Simmons. Oh my god. All right. That's enough.
You better not catch me in LA, Kyle. Reviewing Nipsey Hussle. Oh my god, posthumously. Oh god. All right. Anyway, we're done. I'm gonna end this riff. Yeah. All right.
Oh Jesus Christ. All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Later.